All right. Well, here we are, the three amigos, the best friends in the world, starting. It is the most original idea that anyone has ever had to have three, you know, dudes just start a podcast about nothing. And that's what we're doing because we're super original people. And yeah, this is the inaugural episode of the You Don't Know podcast because you don't know, but we do. That's how that goes. We know everything.
It should be called We Don't Know.
It should be called We Don't
This
Know.
is a space where we can all agree that we just absolutely know nothing. No,
We absolutely know nothing, and yet we are going to talk at length about it at your faces.
Yes.
Is what we want to do. So, yeah, we're going to kick it off here. The podcast that we wanted to start off with, talking about, is a theme about masculinity, and I think the reason that it was interesting to me was that I think us three are kind of different. We were all raised together. So, maybe a little bit of background is in order.
That's a good idea.
Some, introductions are due here before we get too far down the rabbit hole. But I'll kick it off with who I am. My name is Michael Fonvern. Is that how you do this on podcasts? You're just like, I am this person, and then you announce it. It sounds funky, but I guess that's how we do it. So my name is Michael Fonvern.
That works, man. It works.
These two idiots are people that were raised with me. My cousin Adam is on my left. I don't know what side of the screen you're looking at, viewers apparently, but that would be
That'd
him.
be me.
And then our best friend Frank is someone who was raised with us pretty much since the 4th grade. We've been around each other, and yeah, we grew up, in case anyone probably wouldn't notice, in the 90s. So probably if you don't, or if you want PC content, not going to be super great podcast for you. But yeah, we were all raised together. And yet I think each one of us kind of has a different take on this, And I think of the three of us, I'm probably going to be the more liberal on this. I'm going to be somebody who is a little bit more amorphous on my definition of what masculinity is. That I think Adam, you're going to be maybe a little bit more standard. So I thought us three talking about it would be interesting and make for some good conversation. So yeah, that's the little introduction here. I don't know if you guys want to say anything about yourselves or.
That was pretty good. I mean, nothing too much to add. Yeah, just three good friends and family that enjoy each other's company and don't agree on everything, but do agree on a lot of things. Just kind of talking about stuff,
Yeah, I would say that we've been arguing, ranting since we were in the 4th grade, and we've been at each other's throats at times, and I think that always does make for good entertainment. So I thought that this would be a great idea, and I love pissing Michael off.
I mean, the last time we were in person at my wedding, which was not that long ago, Frank did slap me in the face. So he does love getting into it with me. So it'll be it's okay, everybody. We were very drunk at the time, so don't. If you're drunk, it didn't count. That's masculine rule number 1, I guess, would probably be that, right? If you're drunk, you get a mulligan. For that one time. You do it again, then maybe not. Is it like a 3-strike rule? I'm not sure about.
I don't think that applies to cheating.
But I didn't mention cheating.
I don't think it applies at all, actually. There'd be a lot less people in jail.
I do
macaroni.
Love
macaroni. Yep.
It's off my there for the macaroni. Yeah, I do think it's funny that you have those. Anybody can be a guy or a girl, right? That does the I made a mistake or whatever it is about the cheating, which is just hilarious. Like it was, or an accident, right? Like it was just an accident that you.
The astronomer CEO was it? This is like one of the latest things that just occurred, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
That guy's life is completely destroyed.
Oh,
now.
is it the fucking guy on the
yeah? That guy's life is completely destroyed. Whereas she is probably going to be like, I'm going to take half my husband's shit because he pushed me into another man's arms. So there you go. She's good.
I mean, you never can tell, right? Like it is always hard from the outside. It's an interesting thing. I was watching some of the coverage of that, and like, you go back to when the Kiss Cam started. It's a different era, it's a different time, and something like that never would have gotten any oxygen, right? Like people wouldn't have talked about it. People wouldn't have engaged with it really. Like maybe it would have gotten some sort of weird tiny coverage on a news network somewhere in like a puff piece or like written about in the local paper for like a tiny little blurb, but like nobody would have cared, right?
If it wasn't recorded, like, then it'd be
Yeah.
able to
Well,
spread
and with the
widely.
advent of
Yeah.
social media, dude,
Yeah.
it's spread like wildfire. So it's like
Yep.
people were just gunning after this couple, and they're like, who's her husband, who's his wife, and they were just trying to find and try and
Yeah.
see who they were. It's because they
Uh,
Yeah.
reacted so crazy that people,
Yeah.
had they played it cool, it was, oh, it's just another couple. Nobody would have looked
You
into
can,
it.
yeah.
yeah.
It's because they
Everybody would have
overreacted. They
been
fucked up. They fucked up.
You gotta play it cool, man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta play cool.
Yep. Yeah. Never,
Cooler minds prevail.
never
Cooler heads
admit,
prevail.
never admit guilt. I not to jump into politics so quick, but I hate Trump, but he does get that right. Just never admit you're wrong, and then you're never wrong, even when you're wrong. So jump down that pathway, and you're probably pretty covered. But yeah, it's interesting, right? That is kind of where we're at nowadays. A lot of this the doxing that happens just kind of on both sides of every issue that you can come across, right? Where people are trying to internet sleuth who these people are and put it out in the public to harass them or what it might be. I mean, I saw recently there was the ICE agents, right, are trying to mask up when they go doing the raids and stuff, and the Congress is messing with some laws to try to say you can't mask when you're going in because people have the right to essentially know who you are, and you're coming in like Gestapo style into houses, covering your face. No one knows if you're even who you say you are, right? People just like showing up and getting disappeared. But the flip of that is that ICE is saying that, everyone is trying to dox them. So anyone with a camera is recording these things. ICE, the ones that are just trying to do their jobs, their face gets out there. It gets their address, their phone numbers, their emails, their families, their children then start getting harassment, hate mail, all these sorts of things, and for the ones who are just doing their job, that's bad, right? That's not a good thing. And it's an interesting thing. We live in this brave new world where if your face is out there, you're at risk. Even us right now. Like we put a podcast out there, you throw it out there, people can find you pretty quickly nowadays, for
I'm
sure.
gonna keep my name
Yeah.
as Frank for now.
Frank for now, yeah.
Just
I mean, that's a
Frank.
common one. I did announce my last name pretty boldly, and my last name is only me. There is
No
no
one's
other
gonna remember
founder
your
of that
last
thing.
name. It's made up.
I mean, it is made up, but that's why they can find me. You know what I mean? But then again, I don't hide. You come find me. I'm out here in Kirkland. I'm sure you can find me with my last name. You come see me. We'll have words. It'll be fun.
You just reverse image search your face.
Again, super unique face. Like, who has this face? Come on, honestly, you're gonna find that pretty quickly. I stick out for sure.
Yeah,
But
I
anyways,
also
that
think that we all three kind of have a very, like you mentioned earlier, we all have like a very different take on what masculinity is.
yep,
Each one of us, while we were raised together, we were raised in different ways because we had very different families growing up. I kind of come from, I wouldn't necessarily say third world. It's definitely a developing country. I'm originally from Costa Rica, where I feel like the closer you get to third world, the more defined gender roles kind of become in most parts of the world. So I feel like the men did the manly jobs of herding cattle, did the heavy, dirty jobs, while the women were cooking, milking the cows that the men herded in, and things like that. That were a little bit more gentler and more for the caring and nurturing. And the women cleaned, and the men got drunk. So, you reap the fruits of your hard labor when you're the one being sacrificed for your body. So, um, that's an
Yeah,
excuse just to get drunk, I feel like, for the most part. But yeah, we definitely have different views on what masculinity is, I feel like.
yeah,
And I think we have a good take on, from our own perspectives. I think we can bring a little bit to light, to share with viewers. I think it'd be good.
yeah, yeah. No, for sure. And I think one of the things, if we're going to do this right, is to start off by trying to define it. You know what I mean? Like, masculinity is one of those things. When I was looking at some random Wikipedia posts, because that's how we do research. It's just randomly poking around the internet aimlessly without any actual, like, background in any of this. And so
Naturally. Yep.
doing that form of research, right, kind of pointed to the changes that you see, like, Frank, even you just alluded to it, where like third world countries, or you go into certain parts of the world, it is still a very traditional uh, typeset, right, of what masculinity is, a traditional definition of what masculinity is. But in Western culture, in more modern day spaces, masculinity has evolved, right? If you go back into the times where you had warring armies of knights and chivalric times, where it was a very like Western society viewed it in a chivalric sense, where you had to separate male and female, but you had to like honor them in very specific ways in kind of the medieval times. And you had a very strict code of conduct that determined your kind of masculinity, and that was the image of it. You go back a little bit further in time, to the more, for lack of a better term, barbaric times, where there, the Viking eras, the kind of more brutalistic type societies where there were even less consideration for those things. Masculinity was much more aggressive, and it really centered around your ability to defend physically, your unit, your family, your tribe, whatever it was. And the better you were able to do that, kind of the more masculine you were. And then when you kind of fast forward to modern day times, in modern day kind of advanced Western societies, we don't really have a lot of call to fight, unless you want to, or unless you're putting yourself in some dumbass situations, right? There really isn't a lot of day to day necessity to fight and defend things.
Not
And
fighting
so,
off a saber-toothed tiger is what you're saying.
no, or like a raiding horde of, barbarians coming in to destroy your land, right? Like, it's generally not happening in Seattle, Washington. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
Maybe
mean,
not.
maybe in the U.S., but
well, that's
definitely
what I mean.
across the
Right?
world, there's still some pretty
There's some
crazy shit
areas
going
for
on.
sure, but
Yeah.
like in modern day, like Western society, it's not a common occurrence. And so the definition for masculinity modern day seems to be centered more around your ability to provide rather than to defend. And so the more money you make, the more secure you are in society, the more masculine you are, and that has taken on much more of like the centered focus of modern day masculinity versus being physically strong. Bill Gates can be, the man, right? Take Elon Musk, right? Like, he is an image of masculinity. Donald Trump, even all three of those men, I don't believe could fight. I wouldn't put any of those guys in a fight against anyone and think that they could win. Donald Trump's a draft dodger. Elon Musk is, a nerd. Like, but all of them are not,
So,
the old school sense of what masculinity is. And yet, because of modern day times, because of their status, their money, their fighting ability, they are masculine icons in a
Well,
lot
I
of
think
ways nowadays.
having resources, being able to gather resources, I think speaks to also a certain level of competence, which I think also is a really important part of masculinity. You know,
status. With resources, you have
status,
status.
competence, because it's like, hey, he's able to acquire resources to some degree. He has something going on. He's figured something out that other men hasn't, right? So to have lots of resources, I mean, you could be born into riches. That's another thing, right? That's not
Mhm.
necessarily masculine, right? But people reap the rewards of that too. But if you can acquire resources and provide at a vast amount, a vast level, then that speaks to your masculinity as well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that there's, the old school definition of fighting and defending your tribe and whatnot is applicable in a physical sense nowadays. I mean, people have taken The Art of War by Sun Tzu, Machiavellian's writings, like all of these like more ancient manuscripts on like warfare and adapted it to modern day business. And they've, utilized principles of war to conduct business in the modern era. That
Strategy.
strategy.
Yeah.
And, that is very true too. So like it morphed from a physical sense into a more kind of metaphorical sense, right? Of how do you defend your wealth? How do you ensure that your people are provided for, right? In a modern day society, you're not out there in the trenches, throwing blows, stabbing people. You're in corporate boardrooms. You're, doing things to try to increase influence and power, and therefore the rest of, your kind of unit.
Well, you have to be smart. You can't be stupid with your money. You have to have a plan and you have to be able to execute. I think also another aspect of it is, being able to set a plan and achieve it, right? So I think another aspect of it is you can't be a loser. And by that, I don't mean like, a fat ass sitting on the couch not going to work type of loser. I mean like you have to be able to show some success, a track record of success, right? Because you can have all the dreams and all the plans in the world, but if you lose every single time, then it's like, well, what are you doing? You're
Yeah.
incompetent, or you're not trying hard enough, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
So it speaks to your competence level whether or not you have success, and obviously you have to have people around you. So I think camaraderie and your network also has to be there too. I think another part that we probably should discuss is masculinity in and of itself. I feel like in this day and age, it's the modernized version of masculinity. It's almost like under attack, and that's because you probably have like the enigmas, not necessarily the enigma, but like the polar opposite of what mainstream media wants to kind of shove it down everybody's throats. Men should cry, men should do this, they should be more soft in touch with their feelings, and this and this and that in turn creates like the polar opposite by reaction. It's like like a equal and positive, equal and opposite
You're
reaction type of
you're
deal.
trying to
So
say
like,
that the opposite side of that, the over hyper masculine side, is being fueled by the attempt to tamp it down, is what you're trying to get at there. The more you try to stamp out masculinity,
it's
the
like the
more it
Matrix.
plays
Yeah,
and
it's like the
responds
Matrix.
to
Eventually
masculinity.
there's like an equal opposite force to
Yeah,
oppose it,
yeah.
rises,
I don't
and that's
disagree with
kind
you
of
on that. I think that's actually really a valid point. And I think that although I disagree with probably some of the things you'll say, men showing emotion, men crying, I think it is good that we've gotten to a place where it's not bad to talk about those things. But I do agree that the
it's good to talk
focus
about
has
it. Just don't do it.
just
You're
don't
okay.
do
It's
it.
okay to talk about it. Just don't
Come on,
fucking do
just
it,
don't. You
especially
can
not in front
talk
of your
about
girl.
it,
Oh
in the
man.
dark
Do
when
that
you're
shit in the
crying
dark.
yourself.
Do it
You
in the
know what I
dark
mean? You
alone.
can try. I think that talking about the stuff is good, and being able to exercise those emotions is healthy and important. But the super focus on it, I don't think has been helpful. I do think that there has, the pendulum has clearly swung, and it always does. Again, if you look at society going backwards, we have these ebb and flows in kind of the culture wars, for the lack of a better term, where you have times of more conservatism, more times of liberalism, more times of moving society forward in a lot of levels, and it usually engenders a backlash. Right? Like the freeing of the slaves led to Jim Crow era, right? Like you have these back and forths in society where things advance quickly, and as a result there is resistance to it, and not all of the advancements are laid out in a way that enables society to kind of absorb it organically. And so, yeah, I think that has been a problem of the left in kind of not being tactful in how they approach these things and painted with a very broad brush, for sure. Um, but yeah, it is that's definitely a valid point. I did, not to dominate the conversation here, but I did want to, because I looked up another thing here too, where kind of the traditional traits of masculinity, right, were in Western society in general, included strength, courage, independence, leadership, dominance, and assertiveness. I'm sure you guys, if you were poking around, saw those kind of as some of the top ones there. And what's interesting about those is, they are not inherently male. That you don't have to be a man to exhibit strength, courage, independence, leadership, dominance, and assertiveness.
This
It
was
is not.
my whole spiel, dude, is like you have to define the traits first of what masculinity is, and then once you find those traits, or at least this was my journey with it, is like once you find those traits, then it's like, oh, then you realize that it's not specific to any sex. So you just have to define masculinity as its own entity, its own energy that's inherent in people in the universe. I mean, they even put masculine and feminine into words in certain languages, right? So it's like it's more of like a force throughout the universe rather than only specific to a sex. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
once you're there, then you can start like applying it to the everyday things. You could
yeah,
apply it to people, you could apply it to nature, you can apply it to everything, right? So it's inherent
yeah,
in everything. The yin and the yang. So masculine and feminine throughout the universe.
yeah. And I think that when you look at it, right, and I think in order to understand or to begin to talk about a topic like masculinity, it's as old as time, right? You're dealing with a subject that has been thought about since essentially people have been around to think about it and start trying to categorize and put things into buckets, right? And traditionally, we kind of talked about it at the intro, where if you go back in time, the males, the men had to defend, they had to hunt, they had to do the physical
Men still have
things.
to defend.
Well,
Who's
yes,
dying in the wars right now?
there are women in war. There's
There's some.
that last.
There's
There
some
are
women.
there are more than there used to be, and they continue to be more. There was the first female special forces soldier, I think, that just went through not too long ago. The laws have not allowed it for the longest, and if you go back in time, there are plenty of examples of female soldiers in many different cultures throughout many different times. That's not something women are not in case, especially modern day war, where you do not have to be a strong sword barbarian to kill people. You got to pull a trigger. You got to have endurance, and you have to be
You guys see
smart. And
that
if you can do
video
those
of
things,
that
you can be that
Russian
force.
that Asian Russian guy who
Oh
died
yeah,
with
yeah,
with
stabbed to
his
death like six
with
people or whatever, and got back.
yeah, he stabbed to death six people. And
Yeah,
so if you don't think that physical strength is required in war still, tell
no,
that guy.
it is. It absolutely is. But did you see that guy? He's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was a random fucking dude. You know what I mean? Like when you're dealing with modern war, and look, it is something that and I probably don't need to point it out again and again and again, but we know nothing about, because none of us are soldiers, and I just want to throw that out there. But like the practicality of like killing people is much easier today than it has ever been. If you look at like even drone warfare, if you look at the
Technology
ways in
assisted.
which
Yeah.
people kill people nowadays, the majority of it is not hand-to-hand combat. Does it happen? Yes. Do you need to be physical in that situation? Absolutely. Would you be really dumb to just fill your armies with nothing but very weak individuals? Yes, you would be, because that's insane. Like, why would you do that,
Are you
right?
calling women weak?
I was referring to both, women and men. There's a bunch of weak men
Okay.
that, I put me up there, man. I would be the first one to die, my fat ass being out there for sure. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
they have to
physicality
adjust they have to
is
adjust the physical standards for women to be in the army. So then by definition they are weaker compared
but they
to
didn't. And then they've made laws now too that, Trump administration being in power, they're and maybe I don't know if we can try to look it up after we're doing the podcast here. But I know that there was some changes for the very specific types of physical requirements that were needed under, like, I think it started in the Obama administration into the Biden administration, and then they started rolling it back in the Trump administration, in this Trump administration. I don't know if they did anything the first time around, but um from what I knew about it, it was not a very massive difference. And there was actually even a news piece on I think it was like MSNBC or something like that, where there was a female news anchor who went and took the modern day, the Trump approved, like, this is what you have to do to be eligible for combat services. And the female newscaster was able to pass all of it. Like, it's not to be in active combat. The bar is not that high. Like, you need to be able to run a certain amount. You need to be able to do a certain amount of pull-ups and push-ups and things like that and be physical. But look at the chicks that do CrossFit and shit like that. Like, they can pass all of that. There is not even a hint of any, like, a bunch of females can pass the physical fitness to get into the army. Now, can they do like the special forces, the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, right? Like, that level of intensity has yet to be super proved. Like I said, there was that one female that did it in recently and got in, but it has not been something that has been achieved tremendously yet. But
Well, I
the
think there's
the
a
point.
very. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say the point that I was, circling around to is that when you look at the definition of masculinity, as we kind of talked about it, and Adam kind of went into it there with these not being specific male traits, they are just traits. They're devoid of a gender. When you look at the very real evolutionary traits and tracts of humanity, back in time, there wasn't any room for anything, right? Like, you had to uh, develop based on your kind of genetics at that point. There wasn't any societal ability to maneuver at all, right? And so when you are a caveman and you're defending against the saber-tooths and all that sort of stuff, it was a very physical thing that needed to happen. And so a lot of these traits, I think, spin out of that and get attributed to men. But again, throughout time, you can see a lot of female examples of people that had all of these traits for sure.
Sure. Although I'm a firm believer that the exceptions don't make the rule. I do agree with the fact that traits can be held by both men and women. Masculine traits don't exclusively, say that only men can have these traits. And same for females. I can smile, I can smell a feminine dude a fucking mile away, and you can see them walking down the street like, oh my God. So you can spot femininity as well, just as bad as you can like masculinity. So I agree with
Yeah,
that statement that Adam said.
I think that, like,
However, I think that you're physiologically built differently, and you're more inclined to be a certain way based on what you were born as. So
Yeah, no
let's not
doubt.
try
Men and
to.
men and women are built differently. No doubt about that. And men are generally inclined towards certain professions for that reason. Same with women. There's
We
no
like
doubt
things,
about
they
that.
like people.
It's
yeah,
just that
well,
the traits, the traits that make up masculinity are they're just not. They don't only belong to men, I guess, is the point. You know what I
Of
mean?
course.
And just because, and same with femininity, they don't only belong to women. Like a balanced individual, some would say, is having a perfect mix of both and applying it.
yeah. And I think, the point that I'm making with the kind of like the context of going back in time to nowadays is that, we framed masculinity in the past as being a physical one, but then talked about the modern day, needing to provide. And one of the things that humans have done that no other animal has done on this planet is create technology. Technology being, like, not of the natural earth. Like, that's the definition of technology. It's man-made, right? And with the advent of modern day society, with the advent of modern day technology, the physical nature of what a man is less important. It just is. It is less important today than it was back in the day. And so what you see is a lot more women who have the traits, but not necessarily the physicality of men, and who are doing a lot of great things, that are great leaders. They have very independent, they are courageous in a lot of fields and a lot of areas. They dominate areas. They, are assertive, all of these traits that we consider masculine. But because modern day society does not require you to also be physically imposing and intimidating, again, example, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, you don't have to be physically masculine in order to be spiritually, emotionally, whatever you want to call it, masculine. And that's a very kind of different grouping
Yeah,
there.
I agree that, obviously being physically strong is less important for survival these days, right? Very little things are absurd, like really required for survival these days just because of how easy of a civilization we've built. But I think that there are other things that are just as important, and that's to hold true to your own moralities, and to in some ways be rigid about those as well. Because I think part of being masculine is not taking things that
Being rigid.
don't
I'm sorry.
don't don't that don't meld with you, like, right, so it's like you have to be intolerant to some degree. You can't be tolerant of everything and be masculine.
Stand for something and
Yeah.
hold to what you stand for.
Yeah,
Well, I
exactly.
disagree with your premise, which is that I don't think that being tolerant means that you don't stand for something. I think I can stand for plenty.
Say that.
Well, you did.
I said that
You
I said that you can't
can't
be
be
tolerant
tolerant
of
of
everything
everything.
and be masculine.
What I'm saying is I disagree. I think that you can be tolerant of everything and be masculine. I don't think that those two things
Hmm,
are they don't go together, right? Like I can
really?
be especially because like I think this conversation will start to go into also like the difference between the individual versus the collective. And I, as an individual, have a belief for myself, and I know who I am. I have a masculine image of who I am. I am a straight man. I exhibit certain masculine qualities. That's who I am. That's who I've always been.
But you
That
can't be
does not
tolerant
mean
of
that
everything.
I cannot tolerate other people to behave differently and still maintain my own sense of masculinity and pride. And I think
That
that's where it
involves
gets
you.
down
But what if
is
it
that
involves you
in what way?
directly or indirectly?
Well, either. Go ahead and explain both if you would
I don't
like.
know.
The
Let's say you're out with your girlfriend or your wife, for example, and some guy tries to kiss your wife. Are you going to be tolerant of that?
Everything is a very broad blanket. You know what I mean?
sure,
If you're
but
tolerant of everything, that's a broad blanket. Yeah.
that's true to like an extent, right? Like you're if you're talking about literally anything, right? Like I will be tolerant of people wanting to murder me. Like no, but if
Right.
where I draw the line is that if somebody is engaging in behavior that is being projected onto others in a very physical, very real sense, then that is not okay. If
And
somebody's
where do you
kissing your
draw the
wife,
line to be
going
inappropriate?
to attack you. Hmm?
And where do you draw the line as to where you believe something is inappropriate, right? Each person gets to determine that, right? But to be able
Yes,
to stand for it and be intolerant of it, I think speaks to your masculinity, and to say it out loud, not just to hold your values, but to be able to say it unapologetically as well. I think is something
sure.
that, because it speaks to your confidence, and that's also another aspect of being masculine, is to be confident in yourself and your own abilities, and you know, almost having I don't give a fuck what you think. This is what I stand for, and if you don't like
Yes,
it, I'm sorry. That's your problem.
sure. But that's also a good way to piss everyone off around you and end up with no ability to grow who you are. You have to tolerate other
I don't know if
people's
those two
opinions
things
and
are.
beliefs. You have to respect, especially like I mean, and not to get too far afield from the topic of like talking about this kind of individual masculinity versus collective, but like in any business and any kind of thing where you are working collaboratively, you have to have an opinion and you have to state it forcefully and say, this is what I believe, this is what I think is happening. But you have to make room for being wrong. You have to be able to be man enough to go, you know what? That's a better idea than what I had. You know what? I was wrong. And that's a trait that is masculine but does not get talked about. And most people will talk about the more aggressive
And
traits.
don't have to talk about it. I think we naturally orient ourselves and we organize ourselves based on competency levels subconsciously, right? We're very hierarchical by nature. It's like, hey, this guy's fucking good at this. I suck at that. Let him do that. I'll focus on this that I'm good at. Like, if he's going to give me advice on how to do it, I'm going to listen to him because he's better at it than I am.
So
I
this
think
is why it's I think it's important to remember what the we're still talking about traits of masculinity, right? So what you were saying, Frank, like naturally ordering things. So one of the definitions I have for masculinity is structure, right? So that's a masculine thing too. That would be considered masculine to structure things. Um, Confrontation is another masculine trait that I have. With both of those things, you can do them in a positive way or a not so positive way, right?
Right.
So you can be,
But you can't always.
confrontational in a way that's not productive at all. But it's important to be willing to confront things when it's necessary, and you could do it in a way that's productive. Same with structure. If you're just too rigid and unwilling to bend, then structure, it can only go so far if you're not open-minded and willing to try new things. And so there's always like a light and light and a dark to everything on
There's
the
always has
scale.
to be a balance, and you have to balance, good leadership with, I feel like, efficiency, right? Because it's like when you have too many chefs in the kitchen, you can't be necessarily, you know, productive and efficient in that way. Sometimes you have to be like, hey guys, listen, if I lead us down the wrong path, so be it. But we're gonna go down this path, And for somebody to take on that role, I think, yeah, it doesn't have to be a man. That is a masculine trait to say, hey guys, listen, let's just go with this, right? If this
Decisiveness.
backfires, this is on me. But at the same time, let's fucking do it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I like, I know, have you managed, Adam? You've been a manager of people's and projects and things.
Yeah, here and there.
So all of us have done this to some extent. I have 30 people underneath me that I manage. I know you manage teams, Frank. I don't know how many people you have underneath you
no
actively
teams
manage that.
anymore. I manage
Mhm.
engineers.
Engineers.
Hey, hey,
I didn't
I'm an
mean to laugh
engineer.
at art and engineers. It's just my
You're a
experience with
sound
engineers.
engineer. That's different. Mechanical engineers are the
Engineers,
worst.
like we're talking about like masculinity, engineers in my experience are very timid and very insecure about who they are and don't like to make a lot of
Eh, I've seen it both
decisive
ways.
decisions is what I've seen with them. They hedge a lot and and work
Well, they're
in a
overthinkers. A lot of them are.
they, yeah.
You
They
know,
Oh
do.
I
yeah.
tend to be an overthinker, so I thought could have been an excellent engineer in my other
Well,
life.
get
But
like when you are a manager, when you're leading a project, a team, a group, whatever it might be, like yes, right, like they're talking is good, understanding problem is good, but there are always going to be times when there are time constraints where you cannot afford to sit and not take action, and you have to be able to say, even to go with your gut, to be like, we're making a decision, we're moving forward, right? Being decisive and pushing forward, and then being. But the thing is, the difference between a good leader and I think like a truly, maybe it's rounded is the more correct term of like being a masculine leader, is that when you make that decision and you start going down the pathway, if it becomes apparent that it's wrong, you can either double down and you can either continue to do the thing that you are becoming more and more aware is incorrect because you made the decision and you can't allow the questioning of your authority. You can't
plus,
allow
it's
for
being
back.
foolish.
Well, it is, but it's also being very masculine. It's being foolish is also kind of like a masculine trait. Like you were just talking about being decisive and
No, that's being
resolute.
prideful. Prideful is a masculine trait, I feel like, in some ways. But at the same
It's
time, I feel
very,
like it's foolish, and it's also insecure to not be able to say, "Oh, guys, this one's on me," right?
yeah,
I think it speaks more to your masculinity and your ability to handle stress and to essentially fall on the sword, and say, "Hey, listen, guys, be honest with you, be honest with yourself, and say, I think I made a mistake. What can we do about this?" Right?
yeah.
Let's let's convene. But obviously, if you were like, "Fuck everyone's thoughts right now," we're gonna do what I say, and then you end up being wrong. Everyone's gonna be like, "Fuck you."
I
So
know people. I know people who they're like and you talked about like organization and like this natural equilibrium that men find. That's, in my opinion, in my experience, that's mostly nonsense. People, I have seen so many people that will do that and know that they're tanking something and immediately start trying to jump ship so that they can leverage their current position with a new position and fuck over everyone that they're leaving behind, essentially, and get onto a new project. And they've done that multiple times. They weasel their way into all sorts of
I
companies.
think that's 21st century bullshit. I think honestly, for the most part, we were born, raised as guys to kind of, okay, so there was a study that was done with like kids. They studied kids, right? And they studied how boys played versus how girls played. I don't know if you guys have heard this. I'm sure if I've seen it online and people have discussed it. When boys play, they play games that, there's a clear outcome, there's a clear winner, there's a clear loser. And when there's a tie, when there's when they can't move forward with the game or something, they have jump ball, or they find a way to figure it out, and then they keep playing the game. Right? That's how boys play. They kind of hire, they pick teams and say, "Hey, this guy's going to be the quarterback. This guy's going to be the leader, or whatnot." And then where girls play, they play games that don't actually have a clear and they have hopscotch. They play things where you don't really have a winner, right? And when there's a conflict, when girls play, they don't solve it. They just stop playing, and then that's it.
I've
Whereas with guys, they figure it out. It's like, oh, there's a conflict, so we'll figure it out, jump ball or whatever. Let's keep the ball rolling, type of deal.
Yeah.
So I think it's just naturally in our physiology we're built different. So I don't know. For
There's an
to say
interesting
that we don't
conversation.
to say we don't structure
In
ourselves, it's just because somebody's trying to get ahead of his job doesn't necessarily mean that we don't do that naturally. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, I think that like there's definite to ignore the physical and by extension mental differences between men and women. Like I think is dumb and incorrect. Like there are differences in the hormones in our bodies, in the way that we approach different things. That is even in men that is true, right? Like there are different approaches that men take at different levels of hormones and viewpoints. I think that there's an interesting conversation in there about like how much of and again I don't want to go too far afield from the original conversation on masculinity in particular, but like how much does nature versus nurture dictate behavior in particular, right? Like girls and boys are raised, especially when you look at any study and anything that was done in the 1900s or prior, right? Like the traditional teaching of gender roles and behavior is what was ingrained in children. And so when you look at the way they play in part based on how they were taught and how they are expected to behave, right? Because it is not allowed. If a guy, if a dad had a son who was playing with dolls or who was not conflict centered and who was not focused on sports and doing this kind of hierarchical like viewpoint, that back in the day, you would have beat them. He would have smacked them around and been like, "What are you, a fairy? What are you doing?" Like that has been society, and it's the same thing with girls, right? Any girl who exhibited tomboyish traits would have been knocked down, right? And so you learn to hide it, you learn to cover it up, you learn to not expose it because society, cultural tells you it is not acceptable. So although I agree, like the general statement is very true, I think that there's a lot of nuance in it when you start peeling back the layers, especially looking at the way society dictates behavior, especially with children who are just sponges. But it is a very that's a whole nother podcast we could do on that one. It's just like essentially nature versus nurture and how that kind of works. But to circle back to kind of the masculinity and what I was talking about with our earlier points we were making on tolerance and whether or not you can tolerate the behaviors of others that differ from who you are. I think it is a problem in society that people conflate individual uh, viewpoints with collective viewpoints, and it has caused a lot of problems and a lot of friction points. I think that it is okay to allow for the beliefs of others so long as those beliefs do not affect, in a very real sense, a very physical sense, those around them. So a good
What do you
example of
mean
that,
affect?
yeah.
Do you mean
So
I have
like
to
a good,
partake in it? Like,
yeah. Well, so a good example of this would be this, right? Like, so LGBT, we
like
won't
your
even start.
pronouns, like your pronouns.
We
Like I
won't
have to
even
call
start
you
about.
your proper pronoun because that's how you
Sure,
feel.
we could talk about the particular pronoun aspect of it, but even before we get into pronouns, we could just talk about the basic tolerance of the the right for gay people to exist and to find love and to live their lives the way they're choosing to live their lives, completely separate from you, that has nothing to do with you and is not affecting you in any meaningful way. And yet you're going to stand on principle and say they're not allowed to do that. I disagree with that. I don't think that is a good approach. And I think it conflates the personal viewpoint with the societal viewpoint. You're trying to project your, and in fact, you are the one who is trying to force your beliefs on other people. You are trying to say they can't do this. And I think that's what ends up being like the problem, right? Now it starts getting more nuanced when the cultures come together and now we're having to work, we're having to operate in the same spaces. And so you have things like, you know, the pronouns is a very good example of this. I
Well, when you're in a professional work environment, you have other rules that are at play besides your own moralities. You have to abide by other rules besides your own morality. Outside of work, you don't have to use anybody's pronouns that you don't feel necessary to, right? It's like when,
you don't.
like what you said before, is like you said, you know, it's okay for you to believe what you believe as long as it doesn't affect me in any way. That means that I don't
Yes.
have to partake in it. That doesn't mean you can't have common decency. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you don't have to have common decency. Like if it means that it goes against what your own morality is, it's like if I have
Correct.
to call you a man when you're not a man, then it's like I don't
Well, I mean,
believe you're a man. I'm sorry.
I
Yeah.
would offer two arguments about that in particular, which is one, why does it hurt you to do that? Like, what is it
It doesn't hurt
hurting
me at all.
to do
It's
that?
just it's not what I believe. I don't believe you're a man. I'm not gonna call you a man.
You don't have to believe it. They're not asking you to believe it. They're not asking you to.
They're asking you to
Yeah,
speak it. They're asking you to lie. They're asking you to
they're not
lie,
asking you to lie. They're asking you to call them by their preferred pronoun. Is what they're
which is a
asking
lie.
you. It is their preferred pronoun. It's how they view themselves. They're asking you to understand that they have a different viewpoint than you,
I
and to
understand it. I
that's all
understand it,
they're
but I'm
asking.
not
They're not
gonna
asking you
speak it into
to
existence.
go marry them, to go have sex with them, to go do, like, and this is where I think the conflation starts happening, is that most people that are terrified of trans people have, one, probably never met a trans person, and two, believe that there's some sort of weird, aggressive trans people out there that are intentionally trying to convert everybody into this like androgynous like area of reality, which is just not how it is. You know, the trans people that I know, that I've been around, number one, generally are very cool with you not calling them by their pronouns. They don't get upset about it. It's a very common thing for people to mispronoun people. It happens to them all of the time.
Right.
And generally what they do, especially with the people around them who are friends with them, is, you know, because I respect my trans friends, I try to respect their wishes, you know, and I try to address them how they would like to be addressed. And if I mess up, it's not the end of the world, because I'm not trying to cause any harm to them. I'm not trying to insult them. I'm not
It's an
trying to
honest
dig
mistake.
at their reality. Yeah. And that's the thing, is like so much of the friction between the trans community in particular, because even the gay community is much more accepted than the trans community, is that it is so small. It's such a tiny community that most people do not have any direct relationship with those people. And for the most part, they have never been depicted in media in the way that gay society has, gay culture. You don't see trans, you know, athletes. You don't see trans politicians. You don't see trans movie stars, you know, in the way that you see gay
You
people
ever heard
as
of Leah
real people.
Thomas?
What's that?
Ever heard of Leah Thomas?
No, is that, which one is that?
That's a
You'll have
swimmer.
to remind me. But I mean, they are more, you see it more nowadays, like Elliot Page is an example, Bruce Jenner is an example, right? Like there are trans people that are visible today that have never been visible in the past. You know, Eddie Izzard is another trans person who is one of my favorite human beings on the planet. The man's fucking hilarious. I don't know if you watch his stand-up specials, but he's amazing. Or I should say she's amazing, is how that should go. So this is
You
me trying to,
insensitive motherfucker.
yeah, and this is the thing. It's like it's hard, especially, you know, like it's very difficult with trans people, I think, in general, because like especially when you know them. If like my friend, I won't name them, but my friend who became, well, was trans but came out to me and my friend group as trans, it was difficult transitioning from calling them one gender to calling them another gender, just because of habit. It had nothing to do with like an intent or anything. It was
Yeah,
just like,
that's
when I see you, I have already have this built up who you are as a person. And so to do a hard switch is difficult.
Yeah,
Um,
I run into the same issue.
you
I'm
know,
like, I do my best, but it's,
yeah,
It's
please
gonna slip
forgive
out.
me. Yeah,
yeah,
I've been
and that's
calling you this for 25 years. You know what I mean? So it's gonna
yeah.
happen.
And most of the time, those people, like the trans people that I've engaged with, generally speaking, completely understand that and do not have a problem with it. It is not
Yeah,
an issue that they make. Where you do see the friction between trans people and people who misgender them are the people who are intentionally doing it as an insult, who are, I know what you're trying to consider yourself, and I hate everything about you. And I'm not going to call you that because I dislike everything about you. And I'm going to make it a point to say it loudly and in front of everybody as a dig, then we're gonna have problems. Because if somebody did that to me, like again, if you call me a woman because you accidentally thought I was a woman, I'd be like, yeah, that's funny, whatever. If you're intentionally digging at me repeatedly, publicly calling me a woman, we're gonna have some conflict and we're gonna have some conversations about it. You know what I mean? And so
That's a
like
completely
it's
different story. You're
well,
actually a
but it's
man.
not, right. It's this is who I am, right? This is what I identify myself as. And if you're gonna come at me and tell me that I'm wrong, that who I am to the core of my being is wrong, and insult me to my face, you're not wanting a relationship. You're not wanting to engage civilly. You're wanting a fight. And so you know what? Fuck you. I'll engage in it. And let's have a fight then. And that's where the conflict comes in
Sure, and
between
I guess
trans
that's kind of
community and
where
non-trans community.
I see like a really big issue is when words have to turn into physicality, right? It's like you can't agree to disagree. It's like, no, my viewpoint is right. No, my viewpoint is right. There's no agree to disagree. Let's walk away. We can't deal with this. There is, I'm gonna go after you.
Yeah.
There's that follow-up. People can't control themselves to some degree. I think that's
Yeah.
also another aspect of masculinity that should be talked about is the fact that you need to know when to control yourself, right?
Mhm.
And I feel
so
like
discipline is a huge
Yeah.
masculine trait.
Yeah. For
That's a
sure.
really big one.
I think masculinity, yeah, has a lot of different areas that it covers, but discipline and control of your own emotions, not letting your emotions get the best of you. Right, and that's knowing when not to be physical just as much as it is knowing when to be physical, like, when you
Yeah.
absolutely have to. And when, getting into a squabble with somebody just because you disagree on what they believe themselves to be and what I'm going to call you and what I choose to call you, like, I don't have to be around you. I could just remove myself from the situation if we disagree. I'm okay with
Yeah.
walking away from it. It's when people
Yeah.
decide to chase you or things like that and say, "Hey, no, you're gonna call me by what I want to be called." And it's like, "No,
Yeah.
I don't think I am."
my my main argument with and I agree with you entirely, and I think that the another problem, like one of the a lot of problems I see with you don't know what's wrong with society, but I do, and let me tell you what's wrong with society. So what's wrong with society is that number one, people conflate individual viewpoint with collective, and then also people have forgotten, I think, some of the lessons that masculinity does teach us, and discipline, and some of these things I think are very inherently masculine. And I think that the words are words and actions are actions. There's some gray area in there when your words are spurring people into action, and that's again maybe a topic for another podcast. But I do think that we need to be able to step back and understand that having opinions is not violence, especially when it comes from an area that is not inherently antagonistic. Again, we're sitting here, me and you, Frank, we disagree very differently on a lot of these topics, but I know you are not a bad person. And I know you are a good person. I know that your viewpoints and opinions don't come from a place of hate or anger. It is just a viewpoint that you have. And so building a conversation and expanding on that is totally fine. But in today's modern society with social media and the way that conflict is pushed above everything else because it drives clicks and it drives views and it drives attention, that's all people see. And so the
Well, it's
example that you
perceived
gave,
hate. It's
it
like
is, right?
people assume that you hate because you refuse to budge on your own morals, as opposed to just saying, "Hey, that's just not his viewpoint," right? Or
One,
that's not her viewpoint, or something along those lines. It's like, no, you are choosing not to do this because you want to insult me, you want to hate me.
Yeah.
and I'm going to put it all over the internet. I'm going to ruin your life about it.
Yeah.
Type
Yeah.
of deal.
And,
That's the
and
kind of stuff that goes on when it's just like, no, I just don't agree with you.
yeah. And how many people and how many people hate whole groups of people that they've never met, that they don't know. You don't know these people. You've never engaged with, yet you hate them. Not
Well,
even just dislike or disagree. You
I mean, I think that's just low intelligence, right? Those are like low IQ people that are like racist, people that are homophobic, people that are,
yeah.
sexist and shit like that or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just low IQ people. It's like we don't even have to talk about that because that's a whole other.
Well,
We could have a whole segment about stupid people.
yeah. But I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that like that is in relationship to what we're talking about here, like that is the thing that gets amplified in today's modern day society because, like
Gets
you said,
clicks,
I
yeah.
mean, I believe it
Goes
too.
viral.
I think that the true racists, the true, actual hate embedded people are in the minority, but they are a fucking loud minority. They are a visible minority, and everyone else sees it. And it's sold to us as the norm, as if you walk into any street, into any public place, you're gonna find these fights happening. And it's like, look, if you live in your house and you don't ever leave it and you don't go out into society, you believe that shit. You think that's the
True.
reality. When you actually go out there,
Isolated
you're like,
people.
oh, people are
Yeah.
just people. You know what I mean? It's like travel, right? One of the greatest things about travel is when I went to China, when I went to Europe, when I go to these places, it's different. Culture is amazing, like food, like all these things are totally different. But the eye-opening thing for me has always been there's road sign, there's gas stations, there's, love cards, there's people in relationships, there's food, there's families, right? Everywhere you go is humanity. And you when you engage with it, rather than seclude yourself in a silo and focus on social media like doom scrolling, psychopaths, you understand that people have much more in common than they do in conflict. You know what I mean? And the thing that modern day technology, social media should have done, but has not, is brought the world closer together. Unfortunately, the way that and I'm going to start tangenting here really hard. We might have to cut all of this, but the thing that has gone really fucking wrong is the monetary structures for social media, is the Mark Zuckerbergs, is the way that they have implemented the processes for how people get information and done it based around sensationalism and outrage and hate rather than the structures of what brings us together. And they could change that, but it would make them less money. And so they're not going to fucking do that. You know what I mean? And so,
Well, I think what Elon Musk was trying to do with the whole X thing is that he's trying to abide by the rules, the actual rules of the law, right? And say there's just going to be free speech. You can say some crazy fucking shit, but it's not going to be spread like it would have been back in the day, right? It's like if it fits a certain narrative, it's not going to be pushed any more than it otherwise would have. But if it breaks the rules, if it's hateful, it's going to be either
well,
taken down or it's going to be downsized. But the cost of freedom means that crazy people, the people that you don't like, and he said this a bunch of times, the people that you don't like have to be able to have a voice, right? As long as it doesn't break the rules or goes into hatred, as long as it doesn't put people into danger, or as long as you're not threatening people, you have to
I,
let the opposite side of the floor, have a voice as well, and that
I,
means you're gonna hear some crazy fucking shit.
I do agree with you in part of that. And I'll say one more thing, and then maybe, if you guys want to say something, and then I'll circle back to masculinity. I had some other, things that I was going to bring up. And if anyone else wants to come in with other stuff too, that's valid. But the, the, the problem that I have with absolute free expression and free speech is that it
What do you
is
have against free speech? What do you have to say against free speech? How dare you?
when free speech, and I know you said that Elon Musk has tried to do something in which you're not pushing forward the hate. The problem is everything we do is fueled by that. Like when Elon Musk says something, when he does something overtly racist, in my opinion, or other people do things, right? It gets amplified on both sides. It gets pushed, and even if you had, which I don't believe, X is like an actual pure free speech space. But even if you did have one that was legitimate, the problem is there's a bunch of other ones. And so they, and you've seen this on all the social media sites, you will have Facebook that has some Twitter clips, and you have other TikTok clips on YouTube, and you have there's an intermingling of all these systems, and all of these systems are still driven inherently by violence and aggression and conflict rather than solutions. And you can look at the way that China orients its TikTok versus us if you want to look at a different version of that, right? You can create
Yeah,
algorithms.
they push science out. They
Yeah,
push,
yeah.
things are educational and things like that are productive
We
versus for us.
revel in our shit. Like that's what we do as Americans, and we pass it off as some like defense of free speech. And it's like, no, all you've done is create a system in which only the loudest, most bullshit, aggressive narratives can be heard because anything else gets buried and does not get clicks, does not get views, does
What
not
do you
get
mean by buried? Like if it gets intentionally buried by the system, then
because
that's something else other than it's just not that popular.
it's a little
If
bit
you
of
have
both,
more
right? So like,
popular opinions being pushed, then that's just a popular opinion.
when you look at
More people believe
YouTube,
in it.
when you look at YouTube, when you look at Facebook, that's what they hide behind. They hide behind the fact that, hey, look, we don't, create the algorithms necessarily that push all of these narratives. That's what people like. They like the violence. They like the hatred. They like the conflict, and it's them that's pushing it. It's not us. If you have a
That's
problem
people's
with
fault.
what's
That's not
there,
that's
then
not the
deal with
platform's fault.
society. Don't deal with us. But again, you can see in other countries and other instances, there are ways in which you can remove that, still have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and have big, gigantic social media companies that don't prey on conflict, which is what we have currently. So, like, I disagree with the premise that even I will disagree even with the outright premise that social media is somehow a town center that needs to be guarded for free speech versus it being a
Well,
corporation that is
if
owned
it's
for
guarded,
profit.
that's not free speech.
No, guarded in the sense that free speech is allowed and guarded here. Like you are allowed to say whatever you want on X, right? I don't think that that is valid, and I don't think that that's a proper application of freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech means I have the right to say whatever I want to say in public squares, in public forums. I don't think social media qualifies as a public forum. I think it is a for profit company that has fucked with society beyond all reason and is one of the core problems with modern day society that needs to be addressed. You know what I mean?
How do you
Because
address
again,
it? Do you want to remove it?
how do you address it? Is
That's
that
the
the
only way to really address it.
well, I mean, I have some ideas on that. Look, we should totally do a whole social media one on that because I will enrage about that for sure. But I wanted to circle back to a couple things that we were talking about. And again, if you guys have something, let me know. But like we
Sure,
were
I'll be
talking a
right
little
back.
bit
Give me a
about like
second.
masculine
Give me a second.
characters in society, and also talking about like the kind of more intellectual approach to masculinity versus the more like aggressive, outright hostile versions of it, right? And so
Michael, hold that thought while Frank's gone. I'm gonna go take a leak real quick. Maybe if you need to also, then we'll just reconvene in a
yeah,
sec.
for sure,
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, man. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I actually heard everything because I had my AirPods in. I heard you taking a piss, Adam.
Oh no! Don't act like you're not impressed. So what were you saying, Michael? Sorry, I totally cut you off. I just figured it was a good time to
No,
take a quick break.
that's valid. And again, I don't know if you guys have hard stop times here.
Nope. It's Friday.
My man.
It's Friday. We picked the perfect day to do this, dude. This is great.
I
You
I
guys
got
got anything
Saturday
to do
work.
tomorrow? You got what?
I got Saturday work tomorrow. I fucking these. Yeah, our company,
It's not masculine
had
at all, bro. You gotta have Saturdays off to drink a beer.
our company had. Who says I'm not going to drink at work? Come on, man.
There you go.
No, we had,
this is going live at some point, right, Mike?
they won't be surprised. They know me enough to know my comments and my
All
nonsense.
bad.
I was just talking with one of my guys that work with us, and we were going all over like how we used to drink with like the Four Locos and the Mad Dogs, and he was drinking Old English, and I was telling him about like, oh man, I miss King Cobras. They don't sell that up here in Washington. Like it's best malt liquor. Like he's a Marine, so we go back and forth about all these things, and it's fun. But yeah, I got to go in tomorrow because we have 200 something modules that need to be activated and plugged in, and I got a team of 5 coming in to do some overtime work that I have to manage, which is good because I got to do a whole fucking presentation next week for PSC on some bullshit and get them information that I haven't prepped for at all. So I need to start doing that. But it's it. I'm very used to having like 5 hours sleep here, but yeah, I
was up to like 4:30 last night and freaking terrible day at work. Just tired the entire day, but fucking just muscled through it, and probably not even going to bed for a while. So.
Dude, one of the worst things that I run into, I don't know how much you guys do this, but like I am fucking dead tired, work all day, come home, eat my food, I'll wake up a little bit, and then I'm like, I should go to bed. And I lay down and the fucking phone comes out and I just fucking sit there. Either like I have a bad chess addiction. So like there's chess being played. There's like fucking YouTube shorts. Is the worst thing that I got rid of Facebook.
That is the worst.
Like the fucking whole
Facebook. I'll scroll on Facebook to watch certain videos.
Delete it. Yeah,
those YouTube shorts got me down, dude. They know exactly what I like.
This is what I'm talking about though, which is that like if you really break down what especially the shorts, but what all social media is, if you look at Facebook, Instagram, all these things, it is gambling. It is gambling addiction. They have taken the structure of how people gamble and they have turned it into a social media platform.
So gambling. Hold on.
Let me explain.
No, you're absolutely right, Michael.
It's essentially a marketing ploy where you're the product.
No. It is gambling. It is gambling.
Your attention is the product. Your attention is the product on social media platforms, so they can push other.
What they're selling you is gambling. So that's what they take from you. But what you were getting out of it is a gambling experience. So
the way attention is the currency.
Yes.
And the slot machine, how it functions is the same lottery. It's the dopamine hit every time you hope there's a good video coming up next. Swipe.
You're pulling the lever, man, like slots. You're pulling the lever. What is it? What am I gonna get? Is it gonna be fucking 3 cherries? Is it gonna be this thing? I might win, and then you win.
I don't know if I think about it like that.
Dude, it's so true.
I'm always
looking. That's it.
I guess in a way, I guess I kind of see your point because when I'm going through it, I'm primarily looking for information. When I watch TV, I watch documentaries. I'll watch like instructional videos. I'll watch real estate stuff to study and stuff like that. I'm looking for tidbits. I'm looking for little bits of information and things like that. I'm not looking to be like, oh, is the next video going to be the one type of deal?
Well, you kind of are.
Yes, you are.
I mean, like in a way, you're right. Like I'm looking for different bits. It's like, oh, that's useful. I'll say
correct. The difference between a library, which is I'm going to go into the library and I am trying to do research on real estate. So I'm going to look up a real estate thing. I'm going to look up another real estate thing. I'm going to look up another real estate thing. And randomly scrolling through feeds hoping to find something that might be relevant to kind of something you're interested in. Two very separate things, right? And the way that it works is exactly like gambling. You have a basic, and the algorithm knows this. You have a basic tendency to like. I personally like the cop conflict videos. I like the fucking any kind of like fight that's going on that's just absolute bullshit and nonsense. The sovereign citizen shit is fucking hilarious to me. I watched a whole bunch of courtroom shit on them just trashing these people. Like there's a whole slew of them that get me because they know my brain.
Like
But
messing
like
with
the
the
idea
border
is
patrol
like
people, like where
the
they're like,
which one?
no, I'm not gonna stop. I am allowed to pass free and clear between state
Yeah,
lines without stopping
yeah,
or being
yeah,
searched.
yeah. This motherfuckers, the sovereign citizens are fucking hilarious. Like we do a whole episode on those motherfuckers because they're fucking wild. Yeah, they're like, oh no, I don't need a license. I'm in my personal conveyance. I am exercising my right to free travel, and so I don't need to adhere to your laws of the road. And they're like, you do. Fun story. You do, and you're about to be arrested.
With like the license plate that says like sovereign citizen or whatever.
Yeah,
And every single one of them thinks they're so correct and thinks it's like there is nothing that any cop can do to them, and they're always so wrong, and they get tased, and it's
I mean,
fucking.
part of me
It's
almost feels like they're just doing it for the likes, you know,
I
for
some
the
of them
likes,
are
for the
for,
views. But
for
some of
sure.
them actually do get, messed with. So it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
hey,
no, for
you're
sure.
putting yourself
If I
out
was
there
a cop,
to,
I
yeah.
would revel in finding these people and just harassing the ever living shit out of them for sure. But like that's the point is right that the algorithms know kind of the things that you like, and it's like it's so sophisticated. If you're scrolling right and you even hesitate, you're like, and then you scroll
Yeah,
past, it knows that.
right,
It
right.
sees it
Yeah.
and it goes, you like that.
It's
I
a
know
view
you like
time.
that.
It's a
How
view
long
time,
you
right,
looked
right.
at it, if you watched it a couple times.
Yep.
Yeah.
If
Was
you
it
cycled,
boobs? Did the boobs get you? Did the sexy lady get you? Was it, was it the
the
workout
boobs
material?
always
Was
get me, bro. The boobs
boobs
always
always
get
get
me.
me. It's 100%. So much of my
Michael,
feed is
you're
just
a married man.
even like chess. Like I watch a bunch of chess people playing, and like the sexy ladies playing chess 100% fill up my feed all the time just because that's what happens.
I have not come across that ever.
Bro,
I've
hold
been
on,
watching the
hold on.
wrong feeds.
You really have. Hold on, let me pull something
I
up here
might
real quick.
start playing chess. Shit.
Bro, actually, Adam, if you can, because your thing's working better than mine, go to YouTube and look up Andrea Botez chess.
Shit, you don't even know their names.
Botus.
How do you
Botez.
spell it?
Yeah.
Botiz. Okay.
Andrea
Wait,
B-O-T-I,
boxing?
yeah, she should pop up. Yeah, B-O-T-I-Z, something like that.
Boxing, dating show,
She did do,
chess.
but she's done like social. She's a very good chess player. She's like woman grandmaster, but she's social influences too. And so you can see her playing chess, and
Whoa.
she's up to fuck.
Yeah.
Alexandria?
Okay.
Oh, no,
Here,
that's
let
her.
me,
Andrea Botez. Yeah.
which one here? Tell me which one to
Whichever, you just throw a random one on. It don't really matter.
okay.
There's a Russian chick too. I always forget her name, but she's fucking.
This one says Andrea is toxic.
Yeah,
Is that her?
yeah, that's her. These are all her.
Made of copper and tellurium because you are cute. I'm actually made of uranium glass because on the outside I'm very exotic and fun looking, but in fact, if you do get too close, you might die from the radioactive elements. Are you made of copper and tellurium?
Okay.
She's like social media influencer, but she is one of the best female chess players on the planet.
Let me go.
And she
Let me
fucking
get your
rages
video.
like crazy, when she loses.
Same old phone.
So you
Nah.
just
Upgrade.
watch her play
Galaxy Z
chess.
Fold 7.
I watch the shorts a lot, so like there's a bunch of like Magnus, Levy, Andrea Botez, there's this Russian chick that's really good too, I started getting really into it. I was watching like the chess national championships and shit like that.
We have never played it to be extremely annoying. Like I knew that Andrea was not happy about me playing this and not entering so long just because of how slow we are. But yeah, I ended up capturing the knight. He took back, and then I went knight c6 just so that the pin would be gone, and then she played e4.
This is not
threatening my
entertaining
knight.
at all.
So now I had to.
What the fuck, dude? I thought
I
that they
was
were gonna have like
expecting
their
bikinis and
yeah, I was
shit, dude.
expecting a
No, no,
bikini,
no,
some
he's-
tits.
he's
Like what the
really
fuck is
good
this,
at
dude?
like
I had to make it.
extremely good
I
at
knew
chess.
that my idea a lot of
Like that's
times
why I started
would
watching
be to
because
push
of her
up my
goddamn
e
was
pawn
really good,
one
but she
step,
too. So like
sacrificing.
it's everything. You know what I mean?
All right. I mean, I can
But
see that. I can see that.
the point of all of that was right. Like, it is a slot machine that you don't know what you're gonna get. You're hoping you get a win,
I'm
you
gonna
get a
put my
payout.
coin in that, dude.
And even whenever
Oh
you
my gosh.
actually get a win, it's never enough, right? It's like gambling. If you win the slot machine, you get like $200. You're gonna put it right back in because you're so fucking obsessed. You know that chick right there
Just
with
type
the
in bikini
wait,
chess or something.
the which Dina do you like? The which Dina do you like one? Top left. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. They click on
Okay.
that. She's this crazy Russian chick. She's super dope. But also, again, just naked chest posing because why not?
Because.
Yeah.
Sex
Okay.
sells.
Why not? Yeah, again, that's social media. It's funny, but like if you were a female
But I definitely wore sunglasses to
if you're like a female
Like, are you?
influencer,
I don't know, dude. It's like the argument in general, just to bring up the argument. It's like, oh, social media is such a bad platform. Social media is just a reflection of what we are.
no,
So
it is, but it
it's just.
isn't. It is, but it isn't. It is, but it isn't. It is not
What do you mean?
indicative.
We
It is,
designed it. We came up with the
what do you mean
algorithm.
we designed? I wasn't in that room, bro.
No.
What you
I'm
talking about?
talking
I wasn't
humans,
invited
buddy.
into
I'm
Facebook
talking
to
human
fucking do anything.
beings. I'm talking
Look,
humans.
it was designed by capitalists trying to siphon money out of you. It is not a reflection of who we are. I'm sorry, it just isn't. It
Plays
has
on the dopamine reward system.
Yeah,
Same as
it
gambling.
has parts of us in it for sure. It plays on mostly our baser instinct. Is there good content? Yes, dude. Like if you even talk about like the ability today to have a problem going on with your car, to have something go wrong in your house, any problem you can fucking imagine, you can search it on YouTube and within 10 minutes have the solution and solve it. Like that's unbelievable access to technology and information that has never existed in humanity. You know what I mean? Like the archive collection of information that exists in YouTube in particular is unparalleled and in and of itself is one of like the great things humanity has ever done. The problem is in the way that it is used, marketed, and sold to people that I have a problem with it. So like social media
Well,
in and of itself is not a problem. The problem is the structure. The problem is the monetary incentives behind how it is used, marketed, and sold. That's what I
I
will argue
mean,
is
you
incorrect.
can argue that, like, I don't know. I think that the majority of the people and the majority of the users on YouTube are just trying to upload content, trying to be helpful in some ways. I feel like a good proportion of them are trying to monetize, but I don't think the majority of the people are making exorbitant amounts of money. I think you're seeing a small percentage of people because that's what's being pushed, and those are the people that are speaking the loudest to
No,
get
for
most views.
sure. My argument is not
So
that people make money out of it. My argument is that the company makes money off it. And YouTube making a fuck ton of money off of it.
But
YouTube makes a
then,
fuck ton of money off of it. Facebook
So I
makes a
mean,
fuck ton.
I think
That is
it's a little bit of a homogenous relationship in a way
well,
because
like this will bleed in.
if people are making money. You don't have to be on YouTube.
No,
You can choose
that's
not
the
to be
same
on
argument
YouTube.
for Amazon, my guy. Like that was the same thing about
Sure.
Amazon that has
Yeah,
killed
go
every
to
small
Walmart,
business in America
you know?
because they're like, you don't have to sell your shit on Amazon unless you want to run a successful fucking business. Like, I'm sorry, it's a fucking monopoly. It's bullshit. Yeah,
there
I
has to be responsibility from the user, though. Everybody
Yeah.
has the choice to not
Yeah.
open it, not have the
but
app. You know what I
this
mean?
is
It's like
exactly
it's not only YouTube's fault.
It's like a
It's
drug
or the
addict
advertising.
complaining
You
that
know,
people make drugs.
I agree that it's the monetary incentive system is corrupt, right, and plays on addictive behaviors in humans. But also, we're the ones we can not watch it. We can not download the app. We can limit ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be some responsibility in every
this is
person's.
this is exactly what I was talking about with the problem of the people conflating individual perspective and narrative with collective. I, as an individual, can recognize my own problems with YouTube and Facebook and take steps to make my experience better. Like I can do that, and I do that, and I don't always succeed, but I try. Right?
Yeah.
If I can have the addiction, I
I'm
can
in the
take
same
steps.
boat, bro. Yeah.
I'm a human being. Like I can make conscious choices to try to better myself. At the same time, I can recognize the effect that this has on society as a whole is a negative and seek to change that while not abdicating my own personal
Do you
responsibility in it.
think that the majority of people that interact with YouTube are having a negative effect. More people are
I
having a negative effect than a positive effect on YouTube.
I do. And I think that it is anecdotal because I don't have statistics to quote, but if you look at and in certain areas, I think it is very negative. In other areas, I think it's benign, if not just kind of annoying. I think that the areas where it's super problematic are young kids. I think have a really hard time with it. I think that they are not as capable as us
They can't
grown
control
adults.
themselves. Their
It's
frontal
very
cortex hasn't developed yet. They can't
no.
control themselves.
Like I can't even imagine being a kid with the current technology setup today. Like it honestly scares me. Like I don't know how I would have gotten through it. You know what I mean? Like
Would you be a parent that wouldn't allow your kids to have a phone?
no, you have to let it. You have to let them have
Not
it.
a phone, but social media.
Even social media, you have to let them. I
You
don't
don't
know
have
what the
to.
right answer there is. It's you have to. I'm a again. This is like very off topic, but I love it. I think that like with kids in particular,
Being a good
you
dad, that's masculine.
for sure, right? Like that's a very super relative topic. I think that for kids, my approach would be and is that you have to expose them to pretty much not even necessarily expose them, but you have to let them find things at their own pace and you have to be with them and be able to communicate with them while they're doing this and putting it in the proper context and monitoring it and making sure it doesn't go into territories that are negative. You know what I mean? So, like, if you have a kid, you need to be tech savvy because these little fuckers are going to find all kinds of ways around it that you don't even understand. You know, you need to know AI. You need to know every single social media platform. You need to know what's going on and you need to be actively engaged with them on these platforms so that you can put it in its proper context and show them what healthy relationship to, and you got to model it too, right? Like so many parents, they're like, you know, you can't go on Facebook. And then the mom or the dad every night while they're eating food is doing this on Facebook. It's like, oh, what the fuck? Kids see that and they're like, you're full of shit. You know, if you want them to have good behavior on social media, you have to have good behavior on social media. You have to model it. You have to make sure that they're doing it. But in no context that I'm aware of does hiding a kid from something protect them from it because they're going to find it eventually. And
Never.
if you
Yeah.
no prep for it, they're just going to be fucking destroyed by it. You know what I mean? Like me on that. I heard a scary one actually, which is the AI chatbots, man, are getting so wild. Like it is really intense how realistic they're getting. Like people are the movie Her, right, with Joaquin Phoenix, where he forms the relationship with the AI chatbot on the phone and he, you know, falls in love with her and all this stuff. We are seconds, not minutes away from that happening, right? Like there are people that are actively engaged in very intense relationships with AI chatbots.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big
And
time.
if you like, one of the things that I saw a psychiatrist talking about in regards to this is that you have a phenomenon happening with especially young men, but with all kids, where they are getting into intimate relationships with AI chatbots. And they are, when they're so young, that it is forming how they view relationships. So when you have an AI chatbot, it's giving you everything you want. It's affirming. If you tell it you want something, it gives it to you. It's attentive. It never it has conflict. It never has any kind of differing opinion. And so kids are
Well, it's not
growing up.
conscious yet.
Well, no,
So
but this is my point: is that kids are growing up expecting real life relationships to emulate that. That when I get into a relationship with a woman, she should never be in conflict with me. She should never have a differing opinion. She should only ever support me. And whenever they get into these relationships and there's any kind of conflict, they throw it away because they think it's not correct, right? They've been packaged this
is this like a
perfect.
documentary that you watched or something?
No, it was just it was a news piece, and the psychiatrist was talking about this phenomenon in general. I'm sure there probably is documentaries on this shit, but like it's a thing that has happened and is going to happen more frequently as kids get into these relationships and get
As
a
parents
false sense
continue to be
of what
shitty parents, you mean?
yeah, for sure. And look, hey man, some single moms, fucking people working multi shifts, like it's hard to be on top of all that shit. But
Yeah, when you have that in your pocket at all times, I mean, you could just friggin' whip it out and
I mean, yeah, you can
start
whip it out.
chatting. You know? Yeah.
I just whip it out. Yeah,
Whip it
I,
out. Start
right,
chatting.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like one of the, like, even when we grew up too, because like we're in, I think, a unique position when it comes to this stuff where we grew up having no internet and we saw internet come when we were young enough to really adapt to it. We saw the beginning of YouTube. We saw Ebaum's World. We saw what it was originally and what it's turned into. But we still remember payphones and parking lots and like not being able to find anybody because nobody had a fucking cell phone. And like we remember all of it. We witnessed it actively, you know what I mean? And one of the things that we also got to witness is the creation and the ubiquitous spread of internet porn, which is also another really weird impact on society that is not talked about a ton, which is that, you know, prior to the internet, getting a hold of porn was relatively difficult. Like you had to, you know, get a physical copy of something, a recording. Like that's why we watched like Porky's back in the day, right? Or like some of these movies would be like tits because you'd be like, oh, it's fucking tits. Look at this shit. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like that was what we had, right? We didn't have anything else. And then suddenly
you could get like you could get the Playboy fuzzy channel because you weren't subscribed, but you could still like change to it, and it would be like super fuzzy.
Yep. You know, and then HBO had, or it was Cinemax had like Skinemax, which was like softcore porn was a thing, which isn't a thing anymore, but was fucking hilarious for a minute. Like all the parodies of softcore porn. If anybody wants to go back and watch, like they did a softcore version of Spider-Man, which was fucking hilarious. And there was a Lord of the Rings one called Lord of the Dildos, I want to say. It was a softcore, but it was a movie. They acted this shit out, and then they would have these weird placed like softcore porn sex scenes inside. It's fucking hilarious.
Like fairly high budget, like semi well done.
Decently high, surprisingly high. Yeah. They didn't know what it was yet. They didn't know what the market was, so they were like, let's try to make actual story with sex in it and see if that sells. And like that was like Game of Thrones too, right? Like, that was that same era where it was like, how can we incorporate sex in an aggressive way but still maintain narrative? And it failed miserably because people either want to masturbate for 20 seconds and then go back to Facebook, or they want to, you know, watch a movie. Like the two aren't the same, right? So it didn't
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, early, like go watch season 1, season 2 of Game of Thrones. It is
Game
like
of Thrones is massively successful.
No. I know, but they changed. They changed in season 1 through like 3, 1 through 2. It was like really great scenes, really great dialogue, really great, you know, everything that Game of Thrones is. And then a ridiculously placed sex scene that went on for far too long and had no real relevance in the story because it was done on HBO. And they were trying to pump that content into Game of Thrones because they thought it was what would bring attention. There was also a Black Flags series on, I want to say HBO or Cinemax as well. It was a pirate thing. Super great story, similar to Game of Thrones in like scope and size and like quality, but just random sex scenes in it. They were like, why are we doing, like, this doesn't have anything to really do with what we're watching here. And Game of Thrones made the transition. And then in seasons like 4, 5, 6, all the way through the end of it, there might have been some sex scenes, but they were very muted. They were very kind of not as front and center as they were at the beginning.
I didn't even get past like the second episode. Like I didn't watch
what is
any
wrong with you, bro?
Dude, sorry, man.
Yeah, what is
Game of Thrones? You just tell me Game of Thrones is good.
I'm a weirdo, dude. You are missing out
God,
big
dude.
time. It is one of the best series out there.
Dude, I'd rather watch.
It's got everything. It's got
watch some of this shit. I'd rather watch this. I'd rather watch this.
It is very good.
Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it is very good. Rick and Morty's good, but Rick and Morty is, you know, episodic. I like things that are episodic, but I also like things that have story arc, you know, and you're going a good story over season. Yeah. And you know, Rick and Morty had some runs. There's a couple like 2, 3 episode runs in Rick and Morty where it's like, oh, you put some plot effort into these things. And you know, Rick goes to like the Rick space continuum.
There have been times where I walk away for 10 seconds and I go back to that same episode 10 seconds later. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
There is.
It moves too fast sometimes.
There's a Rick and Morty D&D. So there is a setting that is Rick and Morty. It has all the characters, the like weapons, the crazy zany plots and shit like that. But it's D&D. So you're essentially playing that game, but inside of the world of Rick and Morty is what you're doing. Also, Black Dahlia Murder has one too. Super randomly, they're into it, and there's literally like a statutory ape D&D setting that they sold to everybody, and it's fucking rad. It's really fucking cool. But yeah, that, I mean, super sidetracking here, but What do you want to do? We're 10 o'clock now. Do you guys want to get into anything else before we?
Well, I was. Did you? I kind of did my homework here. So I've got some notes and shit.
That's the end of the
Uh,
thing, man.
did you guys pick a fictional and non-fictional character to represent that represents masculinity?
Yeah, I have a
You want to go?
couple.
Let's go through fictional first, then.
Sure. Yeah,
What do you got?
I'll read it for sure. Yeah, so like there was a bunch that I had thought about, right? Like, Hank Hill is a good one that I like, which is really kind of like a funny one.
Yeah.
Because Hank is kind of it embodies that more modern day muted masculinity, but he's still the man. He will still die for his family. He's still like all of the things that are kind of very traditionally masculine, but he's also very accepting of anyone that's really around him, which is a fun one.
He
Um,
doesn't know how to be emotional at all, but he really tries.
No, but he wants to. Like there's many times where he does want to, and he attempts to be. Like there's a couple episodes where he's like trying to tell Bobby he loves him, and he's
Yeah,
like, oh, and he's fucking flustered, and he's like, and he makes the. I'll try to make the noise. He goes, he goes, that's a hell of a noise. I've never made that before. And he's like just completely incapable of doing it right, super repressed, but at the same time, like truly loves his son, truly loves his wife and his family. And the contrast is really good in King of the Hill too, because you have Cotton, who is the embodiment of everything that, like, if you
Mm,
were to script masculinity, it would probably be Cotton. He killed 50 men. He goes to sit
yeah.
joint. He is absolutely unabashedly who he is. He will fight with anyone, even though he's 2 feet tall and has no shins. He'll ram his head into people. Like
But
he is
super unhealthy
Wait, who?
also,
Who? Cotton? Who's Cotton?
his dad.
Cotton Hill, Hank's dad.
Oh,
Hank's dad, the
oh.
World War II
So
vet.
it's just like,
Right?
yeah.
He's from that World War II mentality. He's like, there's this one, one of the funniest scenes with him is where there's so many of them, but he goes, he's trying to take Bobby to a whorehouse, and Bobby's like 12 or something, and he's trying to get him, like to have sex for the first time. And because Bobby like smacked his teacher's ass and got sent home from school, and so Cotton's like, "You're a man now. I'm gonna take you to get a whore, and you can have your pick of the litter." And like he's driving him across town, and but Cotton hasn't been there in like 20 years, so he ends up going to this what is now like an actual hotel. And he walks in, and it is a women's empowerment conference that John walks into. He's just like, it's like, "Madam, line up your whores. Let me get the pick." It's just in front of like all the female empowerment people. It is phenomenally hilarious. But it shows, I think, like a pretty good duality of like the different types of masculinity. And then on a side note to that too, it also shows an interesting thing where you have a character who I love. Like I love Cotton. He is hilarious. He's written hilariously. Like he is an amazing, funny, great character. In real life, he's a fucking nightmare. Like you want nothing to do with this person, right?
Oh yeah,
And
for
it's
sure.
funny that in media, like in story narrative, you can have characters who are horrible and yet they're very entertaining. And it is a good thing in story narrative. It is a very problematic thing in reality when you have people that embody those traits. So that
Well,
was one of them that popped up for sure.
if it's in a fictional character, then it's much easier to approach and address and take it in and like be like, okay, I can deal with it in this fashion, and maybe process it in that way because it's not a tangible thing. So that way, you already know, like that's not what I want in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And there's that thing that happens too where like Stephen Colbert was a good example of this when Stephen Colbert was doing the I think it was the Daily Show with Stewart, and he had this character that was super conservative, and he would do the Colbert Report, and he would come on and he would his narrative was a conservative narrative, so whatever would happen, it would you guys know Shane Gillis, right?
Hmm.
The comedian nowadays, conservative
Yeah,
comedian, I love that guy. He's fucking hilarious.
yeah, he's
Does the Trump
hilarious.
impression, like he did always did, very good. He was like kind of Shane Gillis before Shane Gillis did that. The thing was, Colbert, it was sarcasm, and everything he said was so over the top, but it was made as a dig on the conservatives. The problem
Yeah,
was
it was brilliant.
conser- there were some conservatives that didn't get that it was sarcasm and just liked it at face value. And we're like, this is fucking amazing. This guy's speaking our language. You know what I mean? And so like,
Dude,
there's
I
that.
love that show, man. It was so good.
It was so fucking good. And there's that weird thing that happens. Like you'll see it with comedians every now and then who like, they go and they'll do like a racist joke or something. And they'll talk about it like, you know, I do this joke here and it's funny, but if I do it in Texas and, you know, I say like a racist joke or something and you start getting some like, hell yeah, brother, from the background, like you're
Right.
fucking immediately. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, no. This was a joke, my guy. Like, I'm not really on that wagon. You know what I mean? But like, it's funny because like people don't come with it from that expectation. So yeah, and even like the cross section of like free speech, right? And how it is intended versus how it is taken versus how it is affected by the audience is again a whole conversation we had. But
Well, you can't
yeah,
always
King of the
control
Hill.
how people are gonna process
No.
things, right? You can just speak your truth and and don't expect people to kind of bend to what you believe. That's how I live my life, right? So it's like I'll believe what I want to believe. I'll say what I want to say. I'm not going to expect any results. I am going to wait to see your reaction rather than to guess how you're going to react. Rather than, you know, say, hey, I'm going to speak this. I want you to adhere to what I'm saying before, you know, I know what your morals or beliefs are and stuff like that. But in terms of the whole fictional, I don't watch a whole lot of fictional stuff, but I've been obsessed with Naruto. Right? There's this one
Yeah.
character, Jiraiya. Right?
I can't escape this damn show.
No, you
Yeah,
can't.
man.
You can't do it, Adam.
So
You're
until
gonna
you
fucking
took him
watch
off
it.
the show,
You're gonna.
Adam,
Yeah. God damn it, Adam.
Yeah, I'll do it one of these days. One of
Anyways,
these days.
there's
you
this.
just need
There's
like
this
2 months and
there's
like
this-
just nothing to do. And you can watch
Yeah.
that.
So the main character, right? He's like this young kid growing up, going through his trials and tribulations, and his
Is this gonna be a
perseverance.
spoiler?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. But anyways, Jiraiya is
This is
essentially like
Jason.
it.
Jason Statham.
Jiraiya is this guy who's like his mentor, and his time is limited with him, right? He's always has to do his thing, but he's a very dutiful person. So to me, the thing that I saw masculine about him, about that character, was that, you know, his time is limited. He is dutiful. He knows what he needs to do, and he goes out and does it, despite, you know, how it makes others feel, because he has a disciple, a pupil. He doesn't spend much time with them, but the time that he does spend with them is cherished and it's valuable. And he lives his life by his own morals until the end, right? So it's like, I think that's a very masculine thing to do, is to know that you're dutiful, or to be dutiful, and, you know, your time is valuable depending on the kind of man that you are. So it's very important to, you know, pick and choose how you want to spend your time and to be dutiful. So that's my
Jiraiya, I love Jiraiya.
Yeah.
Jiraiya's one of my, for sure, one of the best characters in Naruto is Jiraiya. Adam doesn't know about this, but like Jiraiya has a lot of super toxic masculine traits. Like he is an absolute womanizer. He just he literally writes smut. Like one of the bits that he does is that he's an author of like smut book. And like one of the other teachers is like obsessed with his books. He writes it's fucking hilarious. And you know, he has a lot of very toxic, very kind of like negative you know, traits. But like Frank's talking about, he has a kind of like a true center, and he genuinely cares for everyone. Like the thing about Jiraiya is that, you know, he it's not that he doesn't have hate, but he definitely is a balanced individual. They call him the Toad Sage, you know, in the comic, Frank, or in the anime, I should say.
he has equilibrium with nature, right?
With everything,
He can sense nature.
He has his vices that he engages in, but as a general stance, he does not. And in his kind of like solo, I will do whatever I want. He doesn't want to be a leader. He doesn't want to tell people how to live. He doesn't want the role of Hokage in that. He wants to be a solo person who is not responsible for other people in general.
He believes he can be more effective that way, and it turned out that, you know, during Saga that he is.
Yeah, and also Naruto brings out of him And that's part of the really good part of that story is that the relationship between Jiraiya and Hokage and Naruto brings Jiraiya kind of back into the Leaf Village and reintroduces him to his responsibilities that he had in a lot of ways been shirking. And he was rightfully going after some, he was going after like Orochimaru, and he was going after like some things, but he was also doing it to escape his responsibilities because he didn't want to engage in a lot of these things. And Naruto, through his earnestness and his just being an amazing person and his perseverance with Jiraiya, endeared him to Jiraiya, and in so doing, like really saved Jiraiya. So even though, spoiler alert, people, Jiraiya dies, his salvation is found through his relationship with Naruto, which is, it's a phenomenal story arc. The Jiraiya pain arc that they did is just like, oh my god, masterpiece of like storytelling, and yeah, Jiraiya as a character is just phenomenal for sure. Tons of great scenes. But side note before Adam gives his, have you do you want to have your mind blown? Naruto is a hot take. Naruto and Harry Potter are almost the exact same story, like to crazy degree. So it involved 3 students of a magical school. It is a 2 men, 2 boys, and a girl setup. So in Harry Potter, you've got Ron and Hermione and Harry Potter. And in Naruto, you've got Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. There's a love triangle in both of them. Both Harry Potter and Naruto are orphans. Both Harry Potter and Naruto have like a demon living inside them, essentially, and are the chosen ones who will save the world.
Dude,
Both
this
of
could
them.
also easily be Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And
Although
it goes,
not the love triangle, but yeah.
it goes even deeper with Naruto. Like you can talk about how like in Harry Potter, he was watched over by Albus Dumbledore, who was like the headmaster of Hogwarts, in the same way that Naruto was watched over by the Hokage, the fourth Hokage, I think it's fourth Hokage. The third Hokage watched over him in that very same way, and both died. Dumbledore died fighting Voldemort in the same way that the third Hokage died fighting Orochimaru in this very epic battle that happened and was extremely traumatic for both Harry Potter and Naruto. And then they both find these male figures that guide them. In Harry Potter's case, it's Sirius Black, and in Naruto's case, it's Jiraiya. They both form, and both of them are kind of rough and tumbly, like male, role models who really come to terms with their own sense of being and help the person become a man, but then die tragic deaths in the exact same way. Like, you can go down the list of plot points for both Naruto and Harry Potter, and it is wild how insanely close. I don't know who ripped off who. I tend to think that it would be
Naruto came
J.K.
before
Rowling.
Harry Potter, I believe.
Naruto and stuff, but Harry Potter was like 90 fucking, I don't know when it came out. Like, it was a long time ago. And like maybe there was some borrowing back and forth that was going on. I'm not entirely sure, but like it is a wild thing when you start breaking down the similarities between those two like IPs. So,
You want to hear
random.
a fun sort of theory? You guys watch the John Wick series? Have you heard the theory that John Wick is actually a sub program within the Matrix?
Mhm.
You heard that? I just heard
Yeah,
that one. I was like, "Ooh, I like that one."
I
That's good.
fucking
It's just
love
a
it.
training program,
Interesting.
just training, because he like slowly becomes more and more capable and like supernatural throughout the whole thing. And there's like so many parallels with like the hotel acts as like the hub for in and out, and it's almost got like supernatural capabilities. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna run with that one. I like that theory.
I fucking love it. I think it makes sense, and it's just fun to believe, and why not? And like because like when they plug in all the training programs, right, and he kind of his eyes go over, and he kind of disappears, and then he comes back and he goes, "I know kung fu," right? Like you could think that couple seconds of being plugged in equals the same amount of time in the John Wick series. So that was his experience of learning, was literally he got plugged in, ran the John Wick simulations, learned all of those
Yeah.
techniques, and then became Neo the badass. You know what I mean? Like it's a I like it. I really do. I think it's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, it would
So,
be fun
update.
if if when he got plugged in, that's when he became John Wick. Although he already knew kung fu when he was like before he found that and all that shit. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
There's
like it.
some holes, but like it is a general thing. I think it's really like a dope way to do it for sure.
Glad you're aware that there are holes.
Well, the theory, to be fair, the theory isn't that when he plugged in, that's when he became John Wick. It's just in general, it's a sub program within the Matrix, which I
But
like that one.
Harry Potter did come out before Naruto, by the way.
Yeah. But
Harry Potter
the book,
and the Philosopher's Stone came out in 1997. Naruto, the manga, came out in 1999.
yes, which is interesting, but also like you have a thing that happens where like Naruto came out after Harry Potter, but then Harry Potter's subsequent releases were, I think, slower than Naruto's. Usually with like manga, very quick, like they pump them out rapidly. So it would be interesting to see because all of those story points come in at a later time. So like when Jiraiya happened, like was that the same time? Was like Sirius Black and Harry Potter's relationship already established? Or was that, Jiraiya did that first and then J.K. Rowling noticed it and was like, oh, hey, this is a really cool thing. Or was it just random, right? Like you can have like things that happen concurrently that seem like they're super. I'm sure you could like when two people come up with the same song, even though they didn't fucking hear the other person's.
People rush to submit patented ideas, like within hours of each other on different sides of the world, like
Yeah.
often, it's weird. There's weird things that come out of the ether at the same time, almost like ideas are meant to exist and they're going to exist no matter who comes up with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you have this.
They say that our brains are antennas, and we're essentially just tapping into the ether, right? So like we're just taking in whatever's out there.
Yeah, you have this interesting thing that happens with like writing in that like you're tapping into those sorts of things, but there's also like only so many archetypes you can actually have in a story, right? Like there's only, I forget what it's called, but there's like three basic story plot lines. There's like the adventure, there's the revenge, there's the like I forget the exact, I'm gonna butcher it,
The
but
hero's journey.
yeah, the hero journey, right? Like there are only so many types of narratives that you can have. And by this point, so many stories have been told that there really isn't a new story. You're not going to come up with a new story, but there's an infinite variation of stories. So you can have nuances, you can have different takes on the same topic, but you are never going to come up with a wholly new story in today's modern age. I think it's probably similar with music, right? Every chord there's no like new chord that is going to be found that nobody has ever played before, right?
That's
Frequency,
what makes
maybe.
music really trippy. Really,
Yeah.
like I've thought about that, and it's like there's an infinite number of ways to do it. It is really endless. Like, yes, there's structure that a lot of people, most songs, roughly follow, unless you're like super progressive or whatever. But it's mind-boggling how there's still new music being made with the same notes, right, for each instrument, and it's like I don't think it's the same as story narratives. I think there's still fresh stuff coming out that's like
Well,
never been done before.
I think it is interesting because you kind of just hit on it, right. Like it is the same notes, right? Like, and that's the thing that with like writing is that it is the story structure, right? Like those are the notes. Like the beats of a story are kind of like the way you structure a plot, like the way that the story is flowing. But like how the river flows is up for that's what you're making, right? Like when you're writing a story, you can create something completely unique, even though all of the words have been used before and the same basic story has been told. It is a wholly new story because you are an individual and you have a different take, a different style, a different approach. And so you kind of have a really interesting similarity, I think, with like how you're explaining on the music side, where all these notes exist. It's not like you've developed a new note, but you are putting them together in an infinite array that is based upon like your personal soul expression. I think music seems to me from the outside to be more emotional than writing. Like writing has a logic behind it more so than like music is pure like feeling, right? Like unless you're talking about like actual lyric or something like that. But even then, I feel like in most cases, lyrics still convey more emotion than actual like logic written by. It's not like story structure usually.
More
And
poetic.
yeah, and like some of the best like lyrics make no sense, and it's like, but why did you write it? It's like because it just it feels right in that moment, you know. Like one of my favorite lines of any songs is the song from Beck, actually. And it's in the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey, which is the fucking greatest line that anyone has ever written. Because it like it both makes no sense and is somehow absolutely poetically beautiful. Like in the time of chimpanzees, I was a monkey, meaning like I'm underdeveloped, like I'm not as good, like I'm from an older time, like a monkey is less evolved than a chimp, right? But it, like it has no placement in the song too. It's just a random saying that he throws into it, right? And it's like it's so beautiful in its weirdness and placement in the song too. It's really fun.
That's good. I like that line.
Yeah.
I haven't heard
Uh,
it before, but I like it.
yeah. In the time of
Never
chimpanzees,
heard
of
of
the monkey.
Beck.
Yeah, you have. I guarantee you. Put on a Beck song you heard of. Butane in my veins and the heartbeat of a junkie with the plastic eyeball. Like his lyrics are fucking insane. He was actually Beck was in Futurama when Bender does the like the rib cage thing and he's doing the fucking washboard thing. I don't know if you remember that episode of Futurama. He goes on tour with
Rings
Beck,
bell.
and Beck is the singer that's with him, and
Oh
they're
wow.
talking about lyrics, and Beck starts talking about one of the songs, and he goes, "Oh yeah, when I wrote that song, I was talking about." Wait, what the hell did I mean when I wrote that song? Like, and he's just kind of like making fun of the fact that his lyrics make zero fucking sense.
Nice.
It's good. But what about you, Adam? What's your characters?
Fictional. Maximus from Gladiator.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Oh shit!
he's the man.
Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Yeah, he's got a commitment to something higher than himself. Obviously, Rome and his family, right? Um, Resists corrupt authority. Pretty much goes without saying. He's a warrior, very capable warrior. Um, so obviously all the things that fall into that: discipline, structure. He's also the leader, right?
Mhm.
And a leader through not like for like his men want to follow him. He's not doesn't abuse power. Even then, even when he's enslaved
Respected.
and yeah, respected. Even when he's enslaved, even the gladiators, he leads by example there. And man, the list just goes on and on. He dies for a higher cause. Like when he dies, he in his death, he still brings down the tyrant. You know what I mean? To at least give Rome some freedom.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
Solid character there.
He is one of and yeah, like as far as like a traditional masculine character, I don't think you can do better than than him. Like he is so just perfect. He's almost like Arthurian in
yeah.
that he does not he has slightly more flaws than Arthur. Like King Arthur has zero flaws. He is literally a perfect being. He's almost like a Christ-like figure. He does not have flaws. You could argue that he had that what the gladiator? It's Marcus, right? Marcus, or really? No,
Maximus.
that's Maximus. Thank you. My God, my brain. Maximus, his flaw is maybe his like aggression, right? Like his anger at times throughout the story, he struggles with holding it back. You know,
And
like when he
adultery,
wants,
right? Wasn't there like
yeah,
some implications that
there,
he cheated on his wife? Yeah.
yeah, right. Like there was some stain on his honor, right, from time to time. So he wasn't a perfect character, but he always made the right choice, or even when he made a wrong choice, he then made the right choice afterwards. So like if did you watch Gladiator 2?
I did.
Yeah.
I did
Oh, you
not
did
like
that like
it.
you did like yeah. I mean, look, you're never gonna do better. I don't in a lot of
Yeah.
ways I got a lot of hot takes on Gladiator 2 too, which is like you you had a perfect story in the first Gladiator movie, like a perfect story. It every beat of that story is amazing. The actors, the direction, the soundtrack, like there is nothing wrong with that movie. Like you can analyze it to death, and there's literally nothing wrong with that movie. It's a perfect movie. And so you're going to do a remake, right? Which or a sequel in this case, like that's fine, right? Like it was a really cool universe. Like I don't have a problem with that on its face, but they did the thing that Star Wars has done, which is like, okay, we're gonna go back into this universe. We need a storyline. What are we gonna do? Let's do the exact same storyline that we just did. Let's make another.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, my God, we did the Death Star. We don't need another Death Star. Like, why are you doing that? Make a different story. And with the Gladiator 2 thing, it was the same thing where it's like, you're going back into this universe, which is awesome. But then you literally did the same tyrannical overthrow of the emperors that was done in the first movie with almost zero difference. Like, why am I watching this? You did it before and it was better.
And
You
you
know,
already love the characters from the first one, so
yeah,
anything that is gonna compare to that is, it's gonna pale in comparison. So you're
and
like,
so
oh, this guy's not as good as Joaquin Phoenix. Like, why? I don't want to watch him. I want to watch Joaquin Phoenix be this character.
and I wouldn't have had as big a problem with it if they had changed the story structure. So like, okay, like we're gonna come back into this, we're gonna do a sequel. I like that the kid grows up. I like that it's the implication that it's his kid from the queen, essentially, right? Like it's the bastard child of him. But do it differently. Like there was like maybe his wife, instead of dying in the first battle, gets taken into slavery, and now instead of doing this overthrowing of the empire story, you're doing a rescue, right? My only sole purpose in life is to get her back and to get her into freedom, right?
Yeah,
Like
different story.
that story, and it would have been way better because it's not the same fucking story. And you could have still had all of the like gladiator scenes. You could have still had like the even some elements of like the emperors doing crazy shit. Like you could have had a lot of that, but the basic story would have been different because the character would have been his own character rather than a shadow of the original, gladiator. So
You would have already been on board with liking the character because it was
yeah,
Maximus's son. So you're like,
yeah,
okay, we're cool. I already like
yeah,
you don't have to be a
yeah.
gladiator. Do
And in
whatever the
fact,
fuck you want to do.
him doing something different, stepping out from his father's shadow, makes me like him more. You
Hmm.
doing, LeBron James' son going into the NBA is uninteresting to me because I already saw LeBron James playing the fucking NBA. I don't really give a shit about you playing in the NBA. You're not going to be better than your dad. Like, why am I fucking watching this shit? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not very cool. But if LeBron James' son goes off and plays baseball or, becomes a fucking writer or something, like that's interesting. You've done something, you come from something amazing, but you're doing something different with it. You're your own man, and I think that could be a very masculine trait as well, which is and you were talking about it a lot earlier, Frank, which is the difference between making money and being given money by birth, right? Like even those people that were given money, the ones that took it and did something with it, that became their own person with it, right? That struck out on their own. I think those are more of a masculine trait. I think it is more masculine to step out beyond your comfort zone and beyond, the protection of your father or your group, and to become kind of the leader, the patriarch of whatever it is that you're doing. And so I think that's another very masculine trait that is important, and a differentiation between like somebody who's just given everything and is very powerful based off of that.
Sure, I would agree with
But
that.
Yeah, independence. I mean, that's one of the things I've got written down for. I've got a
it's
whole list of traits, but yeah,
Well,
I would,
independence also just means being a goddamn adult. I mean, come on. At the end of the day, it's like
stop being a
claiming
bitch.
independence as a masculine trait's like, so you got a job, cool. You can afford your
And for some
rent.
people, it's a
All
big
right.
thing. It's a big thing for some people.
yeah. Well, that's
It's
the
just
thing
being.
is
It just means being an adult.
it's
That's
like
not. I feel like that's not. That's like a duty of every adult. It's not a masculine thing. It's just to be independent. It's like some people don't have to be independent, right? Some
Well,
people,
but that's
would
so we.
rather let somebody else work. And if you're beautiful enough, you can have a guy work for you,
Well,
right?
but that's the thing,
So
right? Is one of the things we didn't do in this whole exercise is we defined masculinity, but we didn't define femininity, right? And so if you say independence is not really a masculine term, it's an adult one, right? I would probably counter with like independence is masculine in that you are the provider for yourself and maybe others, right? Like you are independent. You do not subserve to another person necessarily. Like you always have bosses and customers and things like that, but you are not reliant on somebody else for your existence.
Right.
Feminine, the flip of that, in my opinion, would be that the feminine quality is one to support. You want to help
Right.
somebody
Cater,
become. Well, the
nurturing,
cater
catering,
could be used,
nurturing.
but also but there's the saying behind every
Cooperate,
successful man is
collaborate.
a powerful woman, right? Like the and even like I respect it too, because one of the things that I love about being a manager is I really do love helping people. I love lifting people up and getting them into higher positions. Like facilitating growth is not necessarily a masculine trait, especially when it's not for me. Like I'm not doing it because it benefits me. I'm
But
doing it because
it
I
does play a
enjoy.
role into being a good leader. Being a good leader means
Yes,
you lead by
yes,
example and you pick people up. You
sure,
don't tear them
but I
down.
but I don't do it because it gives me a better team, and I don't do it because it is the thing that will bring me success. I do it because I genuinely like helping people. I like lifting them up. I like being supportive, and I like um, being in that role, which is more feminine. It is a more feminine trait to seek to help others more than to help yourself, right? Like the masculine approach is I'm going to do whatever it takes so that I will succeed. And by extent, everyone else. But my main thing is that I am going to succeed. It's me, it's self-centered, it's organized that way. Femininity is the flip, right? It's compassion, it's support, it's uplifting. And
And
so
that's the thing with all, like every single one of these masculine traits is there's going to be you could call it, I hate the like toxic masculinity, but you could say toxic and healthy. And but then there's also, so the opposite of that trait, you'd have the feminine side of it, the counterpart to it, but that feminine trait also has a toxic and a healthy side to it, right? So there's caring and nurturing, which would be, you know, the counter to independent, right? But with caring and nurturing, the unhealthy side of it would be codependence and
mhm.
reliance, right? So
Manipulation as well.
um
I think both are capable of manipulation, but I think men are more gullible to it, more
Manipulation.
susceptible to
it's just
manipulation.
all of these things exist in, as like
Yeah.
they exist simultaneously and to varying degrees within everybody, and that's where it really got tricky for me, is like once I started breaking down masculinity, then okay, what are the traits? And then dude, I even like went so far as like, okay, here's my list, like logic, force, action, order, structure of independence, and then going into, okay, where can you find force and action in nature and structure? You have the structure of the planets, right? You can have the structure of atoms. Movement is a masculine force, right? Atoms are always moving and they're structured, so that's a masculine force. Um,
But those are predetermined forces, I feel like, as opposed to biological needs, right?
Well,
In nature, which is weird in nature, that a lot of the times the female uh, is usually the bigger one, the stronger one, as opposed to where you see in mammals. Well, is it in most mammals, or maybe just in humans? I don't know. I'm not a
yeah,
I'm not a
that's kind of
nature expert, but
I
in a
it's,
lot
it's
of cases you see where like the female species is the bigger one as opposed to.
well, I want to hear Adam finish his point because it seemed like you were going somewhere with that. It was interesting, but I'll tack on to your shit in a minute, Frank.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like it's really hard to condense once you open it up and start seeing like okay, so if we all agree that logic, structure, order, movement, independence, direction, courage, comprehension, like you can see all of these things everywhere in everything, right? Inanimate or not. Um, I even like went down into like how animals display all of these traits, you know. And it doesn't matter if it's a male or female animal, just like for independence, like a bird leaving the nest, right? Just things like that. Um, but then animals, so So we would say intuition is more of a feminine trait or energy, right? And so would that be um, like if animal instincts, would that be a feminine thing or a masculine thing? How migration patterns are just known, how a spider just knows to build a web without being
Yeah.
taught. Like, so my point is like
Is
it's
intuition the
it,
same thing as instinct?
Well, in that sense, I
my
think.
point is like it's really hard to separate, talk about it as a separate thing. And when masculinity can be positive, negative, neutral, and it's always paired with a counterpart that requires it, if it's going to be quote unquote healthy, you have to have both, right, in all aspects. So
Yeah.
it's just I don't know,
No,
it's hard to separate it and talk,
it's super valid, and there was I think we mentioned it some point earlier on, but like when you look at different cultures and different languages, Spanish is one, right, where you gender thing based on the cultural view of whether the sun, right, sun, the moon, the land, the trees, the animals, right, everything has a gender, even when that thing is either genderless or maybe is gendered, but you call all dogs masculine, right? um but you might call a different animal feminine because it exhibits traits that you had identified as being more feminine, right? So like it's a thing as old as time, right? The human beings, one of the things that we've done from the get-go, we're categorizers. We love to find things, name them, put them in little boxes because it makes our brain happy, and it makes us like there's order. And you talk about order structure, right? Like it's a very masculine thing. Society was built by men. It's very true. Like we have ordered society because we like things to be in its proper place, and when it's not, it is an affront to masculinity, and it is a thing that makes a lot of men very uncomfortable
Well, it's
because they
unpredictable.
like
Things that are
order.
unpredictable
We spend a
doesn't make
lot of
us feel
time
very good.
trying
We want to feel
to
safe.
uncertainty. Yeah.
wring order out of chaos. That's been mankind, right? That's the driving force of mankind. I think one of the things that maybe people like Adam would allude to is that maybe we've lost our way and that we have given up parts of ourselves in that pursuit, that we have been so dogmatic about organizing things into little buckets and to making things make sense that we forget that there are certain things that don't, and that life is at its core a mysterious, unknowable, I would maybe even argue feminine entity. Like it is a thing that is unknowable, and yet you are living with it, and it is all around you, and it is omnipresent, and we try to ignore it. Life and death, like even death, could be considered feminine as well, right? It's this thing that is mysterious. I think mysteriousness is more of a feminine trait as well. That's generally like the moon is more of a feminine character, whereas the suns are more masculine because the sun is bright, the sun is light. This is when you work, this is when you do things. When the moon comes out, suddenly things are less clear. Suddenly there's spirits dancing around. So that's why witchcraft was generally a much more feminine thing, right? Like the female wiles, the Adam and Eve story, right? So I think that we talk about swinging too, cultural swinging. You can swing too far one way, and I think you do end up losing parts of you. Like creation is feminine. There is
Yeah.
absolutely creation is feminine, right? So like when you talk about art, when you talk about music, when you talk about expression, life, it is feminine. That is femininity at its core, right? And so like those aspects are not easily identified by men, and as a result generally get pushed lower down the list of importance. And when you structure society in that way, it's very easy to kind of feel hollow, feel like there are things missing, even when you
Why we
know
structured society
others.
so that we can create. It's like that's why we've been able to create so much, is because we've structured it in order to
I
be able to not worry about invading,
yes,
countries and other
yeah,
tribes and werewolves and shit like that.
I agree with you, but then what we end up doing is we've created the circumstance to in some ways eliminate the overpowered nature of masculinity, right? We've created a society in which the masculine traits are not necessarily as important as they used to be. But then you have the backlash, which is kind of what you were talking about, Frank, which is that when you say that out loud, when you go, masculinity is not important anymore, when you go, creation, femininity, art, expression, emotion is more important now, men feel attacked. We feel like you're encroaching on our territory. And there is a strong backlash, which happens and
I
has
never said
happened.
that creation, life, and art was not as important. I never said it was more important than
No, not
masculinity. I
you,
just
but
said that they're trying to shove, toxic masculinity down your throat. That being a man is no longer acceptable.
but it's kind of
That's
all
what I'm trying
one
to
and the
say.
same. And that's what I mean, like with the backlash, is that there will always be, and what Adam is saying, I think is probably closest to the truth, which is that these terms are kind of archaic. Masculine, feminine is a way that we have structured things based on limited information. And as we've gotten more information and as we've developed our society, things have gotten less clear. And the traits that are exhibited in all of us are fostered in different ways, And
The
so,
lines are
like,
blurred, but both are still necessary. I still believe
yeah,
that
you will always
in order to be
need
an
masculine energy.
effective.
You will always need feminine energy. But the balance of that is what's becoming more important than the overpowering of one or the other, And I think that moving towards that is good. And one of the, I don't know if you want to jump in, Adam. You seem like you might.
I'm just thinking. I don't think that it's they're becoming blurred. Uh,
Mm,
I think they're the same traits as they ever were before, right?
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
But one's more
maybe the
accepted than the
problem
other.
is the problem
they're getting
is
clearer.
well,
Less.
they both have to operate simultaneously
Yeah.
to have balance, right? But I think the one of the challenges is we operate dualistically. We have to have dualism in how we exist, right? Us and other, positive and negative. That's how we understand things, one thing from another.
Mhm.
So,
Contrast.
exactly. So, while they can both exist at the same time, we we can only understand them separately.
But they
Yeah.
work
No, for sure.
homogeneously. I feel
Well,
like the contrast is needed, right? Like in order to
yeah.
have a feminine woman, you have to have a masculine man. You can't have a feminine man and a feminine woman.
Well,
So the goal is, I mean, to me, I don't know, just speaking for myself and others as well, is to have both the masculine and feminine integrated
yeah. I think that I
to be
think
a,
that
a, a healthy human being,
I think that's true, and I think that kind of what that makes me think of is contrast is everything. It really is. You if you had, and there's a bunch of biblical allegory stories about this, about like the angels, right? Uh, Adam and Eve living in a perfect paradise, not knowing pain, not knowing misery, right? If the Greeks talk about this a lot, any number of people that will talk about this, where if you lived an existence of never knowing pain, of never knowing suffering, and only ever knowing comfort and peace and happiness. And I mean that like you've never stubbed a toe. Like you don't know what pain is. Like that is not a concept you are aware of. Your understanding of what joy is lesser than somebody who has experienced pain. The fact that I have experienced pain makes me appreciate comfort and joy more than somebody who could never have seen that contrast, right? It's the same thing for life and death. It's the same thing for any basic kind of concept of humanity or psychology or anything. You need one you cannot have life without death. You cannot have existence without destruction, creation without destruction. You have to have a contrast in order to actually say what a thing is. Otherwise, it's just grayscale, and we don't
So
have anybody to actually
sure,
understand anything. You know what I mean?
I get that. I get that. So to kind of play on both of your guys' points and to play devil's advocate, right? It's like, yeah, if you've never stubbed a toe, if you never sensed pain, how can you truly appreciate joy,
Mhm.
right? So I guess it's not really an argument, but it's more pointing it out. It's like if you have the opposite sexes, right, a masculine man and a feminine woman coming together, they kind of bring out the best of each other. Sure, there are going to be overlapping responsibilities, right? If you're drawing like a Venn diagram type of deal. But for the most part, the man's going to be the man, woman has to be the woman in order for that to work the best, with some maybe overlapping differences. Like you can't appreciate a good woman if you're a feminine man. To kind of play onto your point,
I would
because
make
it's
a
like if you're already a feminine man, you can't really appreciate how feminine a woman really is because you yourself are feminine. So if you're
Well,
not a
you might
masculine man,
you might pair with a masculine woman, and
well
then
that's
you would
there.
balance each other out.
So
You know what
like
I mean?
the
it's
point
true.
of what we've been the point of what we've been saying is that these are terms that aren't actually attributed to gender. It's not
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
gender. Masculine femininity is not about gender. And when you can
The
have like
overwhelming majority, it is.
well, what you were saying is like in a relationship, you need a balance of masculine and feminine energy. So you can have a masculine man and a feminine woman. You can also have a masculine woman and a feminine man. You can also have
That
a
usually doesn't
balance.
work.
You can also have a balanced man and a balanced woman. The point is that the ratio, the balance is the key. If you are a masculine man, you need a feminine entity on the other side of that to balance you because you have too much masculinity traits to be a balanced person. So in a relationship, femininity pulls you back. But if you're a feminine man and you get into a relationship with a feminine woman, it's too much of the same thing. You both don't complement each other in the right ways, right? You're enabling your worst behaviors and you're not supporting the good behaviors, right? Just like if you had a masculine man and a masculine woman, you're just going to butt heads all the time because there's a struggle going on there. It's not a symbiotic relationship. And so the point is that masculinity and femininity are terms that we have attributed to gender throughout time, but our understanding has changed in that I think, and maybe even back then too, I think they knew this a little bit more when you talk about the Greeks and some of the older like cultures. It is not tied specifically to gender, even though specific genders tend to exhibit those traits more frequently. And so like it is a scale and a spectrum of existence in which you need to seek balance. And some people need that externally. Some people need another person in order to balance them. Other people can go live in a cave and they don't need anyone because they have that kind of Jiraiya-like balance in their own existence and they don't need external validation or support to kind of exist. So I think that's, a really interesting way to look at it that I had not fully flushed out, in that it is, in large part disconnected from gender, especially in modern day time. I'll throw out one more thing and then maybe we want to wrap it. We can talk about real world people too, if you want to, because I have a list of those people as well.
I
Which are
got
fun.
one. I got
Okay.
one.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to circle back really quick to Frank's thing about the animals, which is this is a thought that I had, which is very just interesting, right? Because you were talking about like female animals tending to be bigger, and kind of the interesting way that evolution happens, right? And so if you look at birds, for example, the female chooses the male in almost every bird society. That's why male birds are more colorful. They're generally more expressive. They dance. They do different things.
Peacock. It's called peacocking.
100%, right? So, like, well, we do, but this is the interesting point that I'm going to make,
And
which is
women
that,
choose men to have sex with, so it's same
well,
thing.
this is my point, though. This is my point. Is this so? That's how birds do it, right? And so then what ends up happening is you have a particular kind of bird that is created over time based on a woman's intent. They are choosing the course of the species by the traits that they are, picking. Differently in other animals, if you look at chimpanzees, if you look at, there are a bunch of different mammals that essentially the strongest male will have sex with whatever woman it wants. So in those animal societies, men are choosing the traits in which dictate the evolutionary path that the species is on. Humans, it could be argued, used to have a system in which men chose which women to have sex with. That was how it worked. And it still works in a lot of places around the world. You had arranged marriages, you had forced sex, because that's just what happened. If you wanted a woman in caveman days, you bonked her on the head with a stick and you took her back and you had sex with her. Like, humans were much more like chimps than we were like birds. It's only really in the 19th century that this is done kind of an about face, and only really in Western society, where suddenly you have women dictating who and how the species is oriented. And so, in a very kind of interesting way, we're at a crossroads of our species, where the helm seems to be taken by the women rather than the men in terms of evolutionary advancement, which is an interesting concept that I was
Well,
thinking about.
I think statistically only like 5% of men have been able to reproduce across time, or 5 or 15%, something absurdly low. Whereas women, it's like 40 something percent have like reproduced. I can draw up the actual numbers on that.
I would be interested.
But,
I'm not aware of this.
but I think that men are still fully in control of whether or not they reproduce, because it's completely within their own abilities to get resources, make something of yourself, and make yourself attractive to the opposite
Yeah,
sex. It's completely
but that's the
100%
point.
within your
But
control.
that's the point. You have to make yourself attractive to them. It's not it. In the past, it wasn't that way. In the
It's
past,
something else.
was that men,
In the
regardless.
civilized, let's put it this way: in the civilized world that we live in for the last 100 years, we can't
But
just.
that's nothing on an evolutionary scale. That's the point that I'm making. Evolutionarily speaking, that's infancy. Like 100 years is fucking nothing, right? So for thousands of years, you have had a system in which men chose whoever they wanted to procreate with.
I mean,
and
those men
procreate
get to choose who they procreate with. Those men at the top get to choose.
No, but they don't.
Yes, they do.
They don't.
Yes, they
They
very
don't.
much do.
You
They get
don't.
their pick at the
They
litter,
have
my
more
friend.
options. They have more options, but they
got
still
their
can't
pick at the
choose.
litter.
They have more options, but they have positioned themselves to be attractive to women.
Right.
And
To
in so
attract women.
doing,
Yeah,
but
to
in
attract
so
women.
doing, women are choosing specific types of men, more successful men, more beautiful men, men that are more compassionate. Maybe there's a bunch of different reasons why a woman would choose to have a kid with somebody. Not all of the women are gold diggers
The
and
top
just
three
want money.
things, the top three things is competence, resources, and kindness. So you have to
Sure.
have those top three things: competence, resources,
I
and
would probably
kindness.
throw in humor as well. Women love some humor, man. You can make
that's
you
like
can make
4
a
or
bit
5.
laugh. You can make her come. I'm just like my point is that it's an interesting situation where we are possibly at a inflection point for our species, where and it's a confluence of a lot of things. We have technology, we have AI, we have cybernization, which is about to happen. Elon Musk doing that shit too. So we are, I think, as much as we talked about like the creation of the internet and what we bore witness to, the next 20 years, I think, is going to bear witness to another revolution that is going to make the advent of the internet look, tiny.
I was a little off on my numbers after doing after doing a little research. It's
Sounded wrong.
80% of women have been able to reproduce
Mhm.
versus 40% of men. It's still first of all, it's double. So
Yeah, it's an interesting number, and like statistics again is another thing we could talk about, which is there's a lot of nuance in that, right? Like, who did you poll? How many people did you poll? Where are you getting your numbers from? Is there any variance in that data? Like, if you look at America versus Saudi Arabia, is there a difference in that? If you look at Mormon culture versus Catholic culture, is there a difference in that? Are you talking about amount of times produced children? Like there's a whole variance of like, why does this number exist? And is that indicative of what you want it to do? My favorite thing about statistics is there's an example that if you look at data, it can be misleading. So if you look at injuries by animal as a telling statistic in what is the most dangerous animal, what you end up with is cows. Cows are the most dangerous animal to man, right? And if you look at that one statistic, more injuries happen with cows than any other animal. So if you look at that, you can say cows are the most, you don't want to come into contact with a cow because it's dangerous. It's going to eat you, right? Like you would rather come into contact with a bear than a cow because statistically, you're less likely to get hurt from a bear than you are from a cow. What the numbers don't take into consideration is that the reason that that is true, the reason that more injuries happen with cows is because humans come into contact more often with cows. We
I mean,
herd them,
anybody with half a
we
brain
raise.
could deduce that.
No, that is not true. I'm sorry, but that is absolutely not true. So much time is spent politically, and again, social media. They pick out one statistic, one bit of data that correlates and shows a point that I'm trying to make, and I will put it on a news article, I'll put it on a tweet, I'll put it wherever, and you won't even second guess it. You'll fucking look at it and you'll be like, "Yep, that's true. That goes right into my brain." I won't even read the fucking article. I'll just look at the headline, the blurb, the tweet. That's how that, and not to
That's
get
what
back
sheep
on it, but
do.
that's what's wrong with social media, man. It's too easy to manipulate. It's too easy to deceive, and it's too easy to people are numb to it. You know what I mean? But anyways,
Okay,
what was your
who's your nonfiction?
nonfiction? Okay, I had a few. I think I think what I would what I would want to talk about, because there's a lot. There's Teddy Roosevelt. There's Andrew Jackson. There's a bunch of presidents. There's a bunch of generals. General Patton is a really interesting one that you can kind of talk about. And it kind of leads into like a dictator versus a democratic leader, right? And even leadership style then becomes an interesting conversation. But the one that I was talking with Cecilia about this, and it brought up an interesting conversation. So I want to share with you, which is that I showed you guys the clip of that 14-year-old who joined World War II Army, right? And fought overseas. Did you see that thing, Frank? Can you, I don't know, do you
Watch
have it
it.
now? Can you pull that thing up? We pull it up real quick. I fucking love that thing. It's fucking
Let me see if I can
wild.
find
As he's looking, it's just like if you search maybe like 14-year-old World War II vet interviewed, you might pop it up. The bit of it, right, is that they're interviewing this kid who's maybe like 18, right? And he joined World War II at 14, lied about his age, went into the army. They're talking to him about it, and he went and fought in like fucking 26, something crazy, like a bunch of deployments, murdering Nazis, and like
Yeah,
trying to imagine my 14-year-old ass at the
There were
time, like
several of
going
them.
overseas to like fucking
Joe
murder
Johnson,
Nazis.
age 14. Bob
Maybe
I got it
Kelso,
right here.
like you got
age
it. I don't know.
13.
I got it.
There's some guy at
Oops.
12. Calvin Graham, age 12. Saw
Yeah,
combat.
I mean, there was a lot of
burned
them
medals.
for sure. Right, like that was just the thing that happened much more frequently. There you go. I got no audio.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, I can hear it.
interesting.
Yeah, let me change. It's over to Chrome, maybe. I'll put it in this one. Okay. Share screen.
How old were you when you enlisted in the Army? I was 14,
You got audio
sir.
now?
This is a
Yeah.
rare instance of World War II. Like the boy who originally enlisted when he was just 14 years old.
14. How did you get in when you were 14?
Well, I went to Peoria, sir, and told the recruiting officer there that I was 18, so he let me in.
Now, how many combat missions were you on over enemy territory?
22, sir.
22. Where were they mostly?
Mostly they were in Africa, sir.
Sicily?
Sicily, Pantelleria, and Sardinia.
You got a girl back home?
No, sir, girls don't bother me much.
What did you miss mostly while you were away?
Oh, ice cream sodas was the most, I guess.
Were you scared at all when you were enemy territory on these missions?
No, sir, not while I was over enemy territory, but when we come back to the field, get out of the plane, you're shaking like a leaf on a tree.
Back home, are you going to worry about being drafted?
No, sir, I'll come back in as soon as I can.
Sergeant Worley, how old were you when you...
Like, there's so much to talk about in that clip, which is just fucking wild. Like, number one, his eyes, like that kid is fucked up. Like you get that, like seeing whatever that kid saw, like holy shit. Again, 14, I was still playing with fucking Pokemon. Like I was watching Sunday morning cartoons. I was this kid's over in Africa with a fucking M1 Grand in a fucking Sherman tank blowing up Nazis. Like that's
And he'll
the
probably never get the chance to reproduce because he's short. What did he say? He said that he said that no women even look his way, dude. Women were still women then.
They don't bother.
They don't give a
bother enough.
fuck.
I mean,
They don't give a fuck. He's taken life. He almost died for the
For
country.
sure.
They don't give a fuck.
for sure. That's a valid take. Another take I took on that was that all of the time that a normal kid would have spent learning how to communicate with a woman, he spent killing Nazis. Like he doesn't know how to interact with a woman because he's never done it. His old teenagers was off killing people. Danny DeVito has a really good clip. Insert that clip, Adam, at some future point of Danny DeVito talking about this, where he talks about being short. The lady asks him about being short and like, did you have to overcompensate and yada yada yada. And Danny DeVito goes off on this topic about how, like, it's all about the dance. It's all about women. We do everything for women. And Danny DeVito ends up with, a beautiful woman and has kids. And, he's 5 foot tall, ugly as sin.
This is the 21st century. He has money. You don't need looks. You don't need
but it was
stats,
before. Like, this was
stature
before.
when you
He
have
was talking about
money.
when he was a kid. One of the things he said was like, and it was funny because he was talking about being a teenager, and he was like, one of the things I really love to do was like, I'm super short, but then you get the tall girl who's self-conscious about being tall, and that was fun. And so like he would like go after so 5 foot tall Danny DeVito was going after like 6'2" girl who's like, worried about her height, right? Like the thing that Danny DeVito understood was that everyone is insecure, and that if you are confident, you can find all sorts of opportunities and all sorts of things. And that's how Danny DeVito became successful, is by emulating that. This kid went and fought a war during the time he should have been learning how to socialize, right? Because a 14-year-old, now he's come back, he's got PTSD, his eyes don't work right, like he's all kinds of fucked up, and he's never going to be normal, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't know anything, and you're going to
Actually, he's probably not gonna have PTSD. He seems pretty okay with everything.
he was
He's
like,
oddly okay with everything.
You know what I mean? It's like
he
really
looked
okay
he
with
looked like
everything.
he saw combat, but he didn't look like he's off the
but what
Richter
ends up
scale or
happening,
anything.
right? And it happens to even like adult military people, is you did a thing that was important. You were over there fighting a war. You come back, and especially for somebody who did what he did, 14 to like 18, 19, whatever it was, you then get dropped in normal life where, like you just said, Frank, it doesn't matter. No one cares. No one cares. You got to now make something of yourself outside of the thing that was the most important thing in your life and probably ever will be in your life. You know what I mean? And
Do
that
you have
kid
the
has
latest
no
iPhone?
tools. That kid has no tools to deal with it, even outside of like what an adult would be able to deal with it. And it sparked the interesting thought of, we see that in America, and we're like, this is a story that is awesome. Like we like it. The kid was a hero. Like how amazing. Look at what a great example of a masculine man, like to do this, to volunteer, to go off and to fight a war at age 14. The same thing seen in an African country where you have a child soldier, right, is a very different view in American culture. Like we would find that detestable. We would find the fact
Well,
I don't know.
there's
those
nuance
kids
there.
are forced.
We're
He
not constructing this, right? Like
voluntarily
he
went to do
volunteered,
it.
right, for sure. But there's a lot of similarities of the same thing, for sure, right? You're volunteering versus conscription, which is very different. But you're still allowing children to participate in war, allowing and forcing children to participate in war. The guy who let that kid into the army should probably be in fucking jail. You knew that kid was not 18. You let him in anyways. Like
True,
he wasn't unique either. That was a common thing that they did. They were totally letting 14-year-olds go fight a goddamn war. Like that's and we hold that up as a good thing. Like that's a proud, amazing thing that we've done. When if you objectively look at it, it's fucking horrible. Like that never should have ever been fucking allowed to happen. None of you would allow your 14-year-old to go fight a fucking war. That's insane. Like it just, but contextually it feels like a good story, which is an interesting, like, again, duality, contrast, and perspective of kind of similar stories, but from a different lens. You know what I mean? But
that's a good point.
that is masculine as fuck for sure. That kid, you know what I mean? Like,
It's
it's hard
definitely
to get
courageous, so it definitely touches on that point, right? So
courageous, for sure. Strength, probably, assertiveness, a lot of the things that, discipline,
well, he didn't die, so
one of
he's
the things,
competent to some regard.
yeah, one of
Right?
the things
So
it's interesting, some of the stuff that we didn't talk about, like we kind of talked about intelligence a little bit, but I don't think that intelligence is necessarily a masculine trait. In and of itself, I think paired with other things, it becomes more masculine. But intelligence is, I don't think,
That's an interesting
considered.
point because I would say how you apply intelligence is what determines whether
Yeah,
it's masculine or feminine, right?
maybe
I
it's more
think
You either
logic. I think when you think about intelligence, I think logic. I don't know. I think almost logic outweighs intelligence in terms of masculinity, because you can have intelligence, but if you're illogical in how you apply your intelligence, then
I think
yeah.
logic requires
some.
intelligence. I don't think
Uh,
they're separate from each other. Like to be
Well,
logical, you have to be
I don't know.
intelligent.
When you deal with engineers enough, you'd be surprised.
Hey, bro, I'm an engineer.
and you
Hey,
could,
you might be. Hey, listen, the exceptions don't make the rule. I'm still gonna fall back
he's
on
not
that,
an
right? But
exception. He
far
is
and
not
few in
doing
between. But no, engineers are great people. I love engineers. They're the reason why we have the things that we have. I'm
Look at him
forever
hedging. Look
grateful.
at him
I'm forever
hedging.
grateful
It's
for
not
all
very masculine,
engineers.
Frank. Kind of just like cowardly hedging your statement.
No,
well,
I have the utmost respect for engineers because
I
they
would
can build. They build, and that's an uttermost masculine thing is to
Well, we
actually
were just talking about
build and
creation,
be
I
able
though.
to
think
Creation
build.
not being masculine. You know what I mean? It's
intuition is the
inherently.
counterpart to logic, right? Going by feel rather than what makes sense using judgment and weighing things out. So yeah, I don't think but
Well, I
intelligence is
think
required for
men.
logic, but
It's kind of interesting
intuition
because
would be the counterpart.
I do think a masculine trait is that manly men, it's weird because, like, you think intuition is feminine, but you're supposed to go with your gut, right? Like, so if you take, for example, Donald Trump, even Elon Musk, a lot of very manly figures nowadays, but throughout time too. General Patton is a good example of that versus like a General Bradley, right? Or even goddamn, I forget his name, but the Allied general. Patton used his gut. He would look at a situation, he would take in information, but kind of like we were talking about earlier, Frank, like he would make a decision and he would push forward based on what he felt and what he intuited in the situation. And
It's a feminine trait.
it is
Well,
a very manly thing to move based on your gut without all of the information, because in a lot of situations, being assertive is more important than being perfect, right? So you can have perfect intelligence and logic, but that don't do shit if I get out the gate and break your door in and kick your teeth in before you can even fucking think. You know what I mean? And so, like, the masculine side of it is aggression, movement without so much forethought tends to be more of a masculine trait, traditionally
sure,
speaking.
but you also have to
And less
consider
female.
other variables like past previous experiences, right? He
Yeah, yeah,
gained a lot of experience, and he has,
yeah.
things that he leads him to feel certain things. Like, hey, I've learned this, therefore, in this particular situation, I feel like this is the best way to do it because I've learned from my previous experiences. You
What's
just drop me into a war. I don't know what the fuck the first thing to do is, right? Well,
yeah,
I know that I need to pick up a gun and defend myself, right? But other than that, I don't know how to lead armies and play chess
yeah.
on a board like a
What's well,
general would because they have experience.
that's what's really interesting though. So I was going to bring up a chess reference here, which is that I am what you would probably consider like a mat. There's different kinds of chess players, right? So like when you play chess, there's 64 pieces, 64 spaces on the board. You've got 16 pieces, and the other person's got 16 pieces, and you're playing on a board. There has been so much attention and study done to opening moves, like the first like 16 moves or so. You can take courses on it. You can figure out all of these patterns that you can memorize and you can utilize in your opening settings and how you analyze the game. But at some point, the game breaks down And there's so many variations that it then becomes very difficult to predict out, and you start having to use a lot more like intuition. And the more chess you play, the more you just get a feel for it. Like I can look at the board when I'm playing and I can go, I feel scared in this position. I can't even tell you why exactly, but I can look at the pieces and I can go, I don't like it. I don't like what's happening here. And I can look at it and go, I think that this side, or that I need to push more on this area, or I need to try to make an attack here. I need to get counterplay going, right? Even though there isn't like a specific intellectual reason for it that I have, there is one. I just don't have it. But I will act on my intuition. And I've won a lot of games based off of that, based off of using your kind of attack. And again, being sort of making attacks, making your opponent scared, that when they make mistakes, you then capitalize on it, is masculine to a lot of extent, because it doesn't require a lot of prima donna-y type preparation and knowledge and logical thinking it out. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, masculinity is about throwing off the gloves and bare knuckle brawling, right? Like that's the traditional look at masculinity, you know what I mean? Which is inherently illogical in a lot of sense.
I
Even
think
though it
that's
works.
kind of like the point I was trying to make, I guess, is just we're all a hodge. The entire universe is a hodgepodge of a mixture of masculine and feminine. If you look at it like that, right? I mean, if you could even look at, let's say, my day, for example. It was structured, which you could label masculine, right? Um, I exercised, took action, masculine. A whole 3-hour conversation, communicating ideas,
And
feminine,
emotions, feelings.
right? Yeah. I mean, it's just where everything is a
Mhm.
mixture.
But you
It's
had
yeah,
structured it in this exchange of ideas and talking points. You brought
yeah.
your structure into the conversation, right? So you still found a way to make it masculine. Good job.
I do
It's
wonder.
both. That's what I'm saying. Is
Yeah.
everything is both at
Well,
all
I'll say
times.
about 80%, 90% of your day, 95% of your day was masculine.
Well,
No,
I
no.
wonder.
I mean, we're all full of emotions. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I do wonder this though. What do you guys think about this? And you kind of alluded to it, Adam, which is that we have feminine, we have masculine, but we haven't talked about androgynous or unlabeled things, right?
Neutral,
So, which one?
neutral, or
Neutral. Yeah, 100% neutral, right? Things that aren't one way or the other. You might be able to argue that intelligence, structure, logic is not masculine or feminine, that the application of logic and intelligence is what makes it one or the other. You know, intent will change intelligence into masculine or feminine. If you're an intelligent woman and your goals are feminine goals and your actions are feminine actions, but you're very intelligent, you're feminine. You're using intellectual abilities, but you are doing it for feminine purposes, right? Same thing that could be applied for logic, right? It is robotic. It is mechanical. It is not, yeah, it is calculated. It is inhuman in some respects. It is more of a force rather than a applied human trait, in the sense that it is masculine and feminine. I think we're all intelligent, but I think that intelligence might be one of those things that is kind of in a neutral category, which is an interesting thought. I don't know where you guys fall on that, but
I
yeah,
think
the
logic.
application of it.
I think logic means, in a lot of ways, stopping to think as opposed to feeling. Right? It's like, hey, I want to make a logical decision. I feel like I should do this, but let me just sit on it. Let me chew it
yeah.
down, and make
Right.
a more logical, thought out decision, as opposed to just
That's why
making,
it's the
hey,
opposite of intuition. You know,
right.
But that's also
intuition's
just
all
kind of
feeling.
what I was talking about. You can attribute the exact opposite as masculine, because men who threw caution to the wind did not use intellect but used intuition, are hailed as manly for doing that, for not taking the time to consider, for pushing boldly forward when you didn't have all of the information in front of you. And
I would
so
disagree.
if
I
two
would
things,
disagree because it's being decisive is the masculine part of that, but
okay,
following your gut is the feminine part of that. It's
ooh,
both.
okay. I think maybe that's it. It's either combinations of things, spectrums of things like we're talking about, or there's possibly things that are neutral
I think
intellect,
instinct is
intuition,
probably something that falls more in
instinct.
the lines of being feminine, or like instinctive reactions to guys, like would be to be aggressive if somebody's threatening you, whereas as opposed to like a woman being threatened, they're gonna want to either get scared, run away, or seek help. Guys would rather defend themselves as opposed to women rather seeking help or finding a different way of resolving the situation or running away from the situation.
Oh
Whereas a
no, a
guy
mother
that,
will do some crazy things for a child.
like I said, the exceptions, there are always going to be exceptions,
Well,
right?
but
The overwhelming
the kind
majority,
of
if you insult a man to his face,
mm,
more than likely you might want to expect some confrontation of some form,
well, but
right? And
you kind
same
of
with some women, right? That's true. But I
yeah.
think instinct is probably something that plays more of a feminine
Well,
or masculine role as
oh, you're
opposed to
saying it's more neutral.
intuition or logic.
Well,
Intuition
but
is
all
How,
better.
three
I
of
was
those
thinking
things.
that.
how does a cat know to be afraid of a cucumber that's never seen before?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Right?
that's pretty
Like
valid. Have you guys done the
it's
thing where
instinct.
they'll yeah, and everyone has it, right? Like so there was the thing. If you do it, it's on YouTube. You can look it up.
The
That
cum.
no, I
Oh
don't know what
shit.
that is.
Oh, so if you have a cat, it's bad because it's
Well, hold
really
on.
like
Cucumber was what you said.
no
Or,
cum,
A cucumber
a comb.
or a comb.
oh, a cum. I heard cum. cum. I heard
Oh
Adam
nope,
just go the cum, and I was like, no.
no, I have no know nothing about that and cats.
No,
No,
yeah, yeah.
keep going. Never mind. It's something else.
No, yeah, yeah, all of those things. But there's one for humans that that you can watch, which is that it's a bunch of images that flash rapidly. So it's like a briefcase, a banana, a fucking iPhone, a car, and then it'll put a beautiful woman, and then it'll put like a tree, a lake, this, and then it's a scorpion, and then it's another thing, another thing, another thing, and then a snake, another thing, another thing, another thing, and then a spider. And what happens is that when the images flash super fast in front of your mind, your brain doesn't have time to process each image, but it is subconsciously looking for threats. And so it picks out and things you like, right? So it picks out without you consciously focusing on it. It will identify it and highlight it for your frontal part of your brain, your conscious part of your brain, to analyze it. And so you essentially you don't see anything except for these particular things because it's instinct, right? It's evolution. It's millions of years of evolution designing you to survive in a system that is dangerous. And where if you are able to look at a tree and see a snake, you're going to survive. So people that are better at that have evolved throughout time. And that's man and woman, right? Like if you are better, if you have better instincts, if you have
Threat
better
recognition.
intuition, you are better at surviving, which means you are going to procreate more, which means you are going to propagate the line more, which means you get it's a feedback, right?
Yeah, but that was
So
back then when those things were actually necessary for survival.
no, I
These days
know,
they're
but
not.
well,
So
no,
you
it's a
have a
hold
bunch of
on, but
people who have no instincts, who have no survival tactics, who have no intuition, surviving
we're
and
we're getting to
reproducing
a
at
point
that.
where yeah, it's interesting, right? And that was kind of the point of like with women dictating who they kind of procreate with. We are also at a point in time where our population is so large, our health is such that people who would have died before ever being able to procreate now live. Their genes continue to spread. You have get people with very low intellect, instincts, all these sorts of things being able to procreate. And some would argue that that's a bad thing. I think it tends to be a good thing, especially in a society in which, like you just pointed out, those things are less important. And so, what is the value of a life? What is the value of what you are and what you're creating, right? Variation gives rise to different outcomes. And when you only have the same thing generating itself over and over again, you're in danger of creating a system in which copies create copies create copies, and the whole thing never evolves past what it should be. So, variation is a good thing, in my opinion, but it is a very interesting conversation to be had about how modern day society allows people to live and to procreate and to change maybe the genetic pathway of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think diversity in genes and like mating and stuff like that is definitely a positive,
Mhm.
right? It's like you
Yeah.
definitely want diverse genes procreating, and that's a
Don't
good thing. I think it's good for
don't bang your cousin.
yeah. I mean, there's a genetic disadvantages to doing things like that, right? Obviously, so it
Yeah.
creates stronger genes moving forward. So I think that's a positive.
They do. We are getting to a point though where yeah, and there was just another news article out that talked about this a little bit where um they've done it in China, that they're starting to do it here a little bit more, and they've already done it for a while on some level where when you have a kid, you can genetically screen it. So you can
The
look at
CRISPR stuff, is that what it's called?
yeah, a little
CRISPR.
bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
Mm.
CRISPR's
that's
like
more
actually editing stuff,
yeah,
like
yeah, gene editing
manipulating
is
stuff,
too.
as
Yeah,
opposed to screening. You're right, right?
yes. Correct. Essentially,
Seeing what they're
right?
going
Like
to be
there
predispositioned to.
well, it's kind of it's step one and then step two in some instances where like you screen, you can identify, and if you identify early enough, you can possibly alter things to change the course of what that fetus would be into something that exhibit that trait. But some of them, there's some techniques where they're including like two partners sometimes who both have like a recessive trait for like a heart defect, right? They shouldn't really procreate because it's very likely that the
It's
kid
gene
could have.
therapy.
Well, but what they've done is if you introduce a third set of DNA to it, so if you mix instead of two people, three people's DNA sets, and one of those people does not have that trait, the child is far less likely to exhibit those traits. You're watering down the possibility that you could actually exhibit the negative symptoms, right? So they're doing
What if
things
you
on that
what if
front.
you put a lion's DNA with two people's DNA?
What's that? An alliance
What if you
DNA?
mix like some animal DNA
Chimera?
with it?
Yeah, yeah.
An,
I mean,
an
that's it's interesting, yeah, because they
abomination.
do. Well, look, we're not that far away, man. Like my mom almost had they do it's a pig valve transplant where you essentially your heart valve fucks up on you, and they will take a valve from a pig's heart and transplant it into human body. So you have instances in which I mean, there's skin grafts. There's the thing where they grow ears on mice, and then will if somebody loses it,
Yeah.
push the ear onto the human being, right? Like that is already in existence, and it's the tip of the fucking iceberg. Like again, with AI, with the computing power of AI coupled with our knowledge of the genome and our ability to manipulate things, China's already doing this, and other countries are doing this far more than America because we tend to be a little bit more conservative on these things.
Yeah,
And
we might be doing it in Antarctica. You never know.
well, I think we're doing it, but not on a large scale like China. And we're probably look. We don't get super conspiracy theory, but maybe in some other countries where we don't care about the population as much, we might be fucking around. Some things like
Oh,
that.
I'm
But
sure we've done some shady, like they've cloned somebody already. We wanted to pioneer that. I'm
you
sure we have.
know, but the thing is, like, we're getting because of the news stories and things like that. Whatever you want to believe with what happens behind closed doors, they are talking actively about these things, and you're seeing the ability to create designer babies to be like, I want a kid with blue eyes. I want a kid with these kinds of traits. I get rid of all genetic defect, not have the colon cancers and the other things that are negative, any kind of exposure to a hereditary disease can be removed.
What was that movie with Jude Law? Just about
Gattaca.
exactly that. Was that what it was?
Yeah, I think it was.
That was
Yeah,
a
was
good
that the
movie.
one where they had clones that they were using for body parts, essentially?
No, that was the island.
Oh, yeah, that was the island. My bad. Yeah,
In
Gattaca.
this one,
What was that one about again?
you could just go
There
get
were insurance
scanned.
policies.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the island one. Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Yeah, I think that it's why it is, I think, very good timing for a lot of really good science fiction stories to come out too. I think we'll see maybe a more larger wave of these. Mickey, I don't
Just
know if you
science
guys
fiction
watch
stories that have been remade. It's like there's no
reality, right?
originality anymore. It's like out the window.
Yeah,
Let's just remake this movie that we made 10 years ago.
there are still good. Like, have you guys seen Mickey 13?
I haven't watched that yet. I've seen
The
the previews
trailer.
for it. Yeah.
It is good. It's really good. And so the Mickey 13 one is for you, Frank, is science fiction story about a guy who lives on Earth, is very poor and in debt and in trouble. So he tries to get out and go. The humans multi-planetary at this point. So he's trying to get on an expedition to get to another planet to start a colony. And so in order to do that, because everyone wants to do it, you can't just actively jump on these things. And he has no traits, he has no skills, he has no anything that they would want. He signs up to be an expendable, which means that they map him so they know his whole like DNA, and then they will use him for experimentation. And when he dies, they just reprint him, and he pops back out with all of his memories. They download his memories into his brain. He comes out having remembered being killed, the feelings, the sensations, everything. And he then can explain things to them. They can test drugs out on him. They can put him in dangerous situations. And he is
This
essentially
is the guy
proper
from the
Twilight.
vampire Twilight.
Yeah, Robert Pattinson. Well, I hated him back when he was that, but he's a great actor, man. He really became like a cool actor after a while.
I'm sorry,
You know
guys.
which
I gotta
movie
go pee again. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I
I
think
liked him in that one movie with where they're like going back in time, where they're like messing with the time churn, where they're oh man, it's like him and Denzel Washington's son. What was that?
Was it a recent movie?
Yeah, fairly recent.
I don't know if I remember that one. The movies I saw with him that I really started like, I thought he did a really good job at Batman. I really did. I thought that was a cool iteration of it. And then I liked him in The Lighthouse too. Was really really good. Mickey 13 was really really good. There was a few
John
early on
David.
too that were
Also, I
were
can
good
hear
after
myself
that.
on your audio, so there's a feedback coming in. So you're gonna have to wear headphones.
Oh, yeah, I might. I don't know because the mic is because the sound's coming through the computer, but the phone is
Right.
picking up
Phone's
my
mic.
voice, so it's hearing your voice as well, and then
I guess
feedbacking.
some kind of.
Yeah.
Let's see. God, what's that movie? What the hell?
It reminded me of Looper. I was thinking about Looper, but I'm like, that was Jordan or Gordon Levitt was in that one with Bruce Willis.
Search it. Why is this just not coming up?
No. Yo. Yeah. Well, it is 11:30, guys. So I don't know if you got real world ones you want to talk about, Adam or Frank.
I'll just throw it out real quick. Mine was Bruce Lee,
Yeah.
and I would argue that he's probably a pretty good balance of both masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
But regardless, the masculine side, he is good.
Don't let Bruce Lee hear
Good
you say
example
that.
of that.
Well, he's dead, so you shouldn't.
Oh, that's
be
right.
too late.
He would probably
He did die
be.
a while ago.
Tenet.
I would.
The movie Tenet.
Oh yeah, I never saw it. I saw.
Really?
I was.
That's actually a good movie.
I was. I feel bad about being so vain about it, but the name annoyed the shit out of me because, like, I know tenant was like a tenant of the Bible or like a thing to live by, a tenant. But every time I heard it, I kept thinking about like a tenant of an apartment, and I was like, "What the fuck is
Spelled
this?" I was like, "I
differently.
don't know." I know, but I'm borderline illiterate. So like I heard the word tenant and I'm like, I don't know. I like, this is weird to me. And then I realized that I was being dumb and it was what it was. But I was like, I kind of don't want to see it anymore because it tainted it for me for some weird reason. Super vague. No reason. Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. But yeah, no, Bruce Lee was, we went to his, because it's Seattle, so we went over to his grave up here. Him and Brandon Lee and his wife are married up here as well. And
Oh, yeah.
they have the Chinese American Museum in International District in Seattle, which has a lot of his stuff in there. Like his, I don't know if it was his apartment that it's in, but like he lived all over there, and so that was really cool to go see. But yeah, he's really awesome. What do you make of? Have you heard like who Michael Jai White is? I'm assuming both of you. He played Spawn in the original movie. He's a
The
badass.
black dude.
Yeah. He's like
Yeah.
he's a fucking one of the greatest martial artists. You know, he was the guy that insert this video in there later, but it's the one of him fucking with Kimbo Slice. You know who Kimbo Slice is, right?
Yeah.
Fucking the brawler, right? And Michael Jai White is showing him a thing about telegraphing punches. And so he's throwing a punch and he's telling Kimbo to block it. And each time Kimbo's blocking it, and then he goes, okay, I'm going to throw another one. Now don't let me block it. And he just moves super slowly, but Kimbo's reaction is so quick that the timing of it gets fucked up. And Michael Jai White is able to get to his face because the point that he's making is like when you move in a way that is expected, you're easy to block, you're easy to counter, even if you're moving fast, because people know what you're doing. So like, especially trained professionals, they train for the pump fake, right? They know when things are coming. And when you don't do that, when instead of pump faking, you just do this, but then you stutter and then move forward, it screws with them in really interesting ways. And he was making that point. But he's a really good martial artist, is the point. Supposedly he's part of John Jones. And even Jones said it. That Michael Jai White kind of manhandled John Jones, which, as you guys probably know, is pretty fucking crazy. John Jones is ridiculous. But because he's a movie guy, he always says, like, you know, I will never say that I'm better than actual fighters, right? Because actual fighters is very different than movies, right? Movies, it's like Steven Seagal, you know, Jackie Chan, you know, Jet Li, Bruce Lee, all those people are Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know, for a Walker Ranger, Texas guy, you know, they're really great martial artists, but there's a very big difference between knowing form and standing in front of somebody who's trying to smash your face in and grab you and throw you on the ground. And like those two things are very, very different. And so like he points out that Bruce Lee is an amazing martial artist, but if you were to put him in a fight with somebody who knew how to fight, really fight, kickbox, box, whatever it is, Bruce Lee would not win because it's a different skill set. You have
Bruce Lee's
weight class though.
Bruce Lee's
even if you put
competed.
somebody like if you put Mighty Mouse against him, you know Mighty Mouse is the little guy.
Bruce Lee competed before,
not
and during he was
he competed
an
in
actor.
he competed in competitions that were more like Taekwondo competitions. They're more like point based, right? It was not Muay Thai, it was not kickboxing, it was not boxing, it was not wrestling, it was not fighting in a way that is real fighting. It works on people who don't know how to do it, but it's sort of like when you watch MMA. If you are somebody who knows Taekwondo, that works really well against somebody who doesn't know how to fight. But if you put somebody who knows Taekwondo against an American wrestler who knows how to box a little, that Taekwondo dude is going down every single fucking time, unless he is a generational talent. Even lower level wrestlers who know how to box a little bit will just destroy a kickboxer would beat the crap out of a Taekwondo person because kickboxing is active. It is an actual combat sport. You're trying to knock the other person out. You're not just tapping for points. You know what I mean? It is a more aggressive form.
Yeah, but not all Taekwondo or Kung Fu is points based. There's regular KO competition in that. So I don't know, man. I don't know if that's a fair argument.
It's interesting. Maybe we do one on that, which is we could pull up some of the stuff. I know essentially what he was saying was that there were some like Bruce Lee was one of them that he was talking about. Jackie Chan was another, and I want to say there was a couple at the time. There was a guy called oh god, I can't remember his name, but he was an actual but he had like 30 fights, and he like was a legitimate fighter. Like he didn't take fights occasionally. He was a fighter. And he talked about him a lot as being like the on-screen guy who knew the most and could actually fight, but then a lot of the other people were more artists than actual brawlers. So that would be interesting to get into.
I wonder who it was that he was talking about.
I'll find it for next time, and we can bring it up for sure.
Even Chuck Norris, he would mess some people up, man.
Chuck Norris is legit. Jean-Claude Van Damme is legit too. He took some kickboxing fights as well. A lot of them took some fights, but they weren't fighters. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between like Chuck Norris, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, and like Steven Seagal, who's just a straight up liar about everything that he does, and he just, you know what I mean? Like that's different. But then there's another level of
You
like,
can't put Steven Seagal in
well, but
anybody's
that's like, you know,
category
yeah,
because he's
like
the worst. He's the absolute worst.
you have people who can fight, like supposedly, like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Chuck Norris, but they just haven't really done it a lot. Like, yes, they did some of it, but like if you would compare like what Chuck Norris did professionally in the fights that he took versus an actual fighter who took 30, 40 fights, just kind of we talk about like being a general or like the intuition, being in a fight and doing it consistently just makes you good at fighting in a way that if you're not doing that, you're not going to be as good as that person. You could train all you want, you can know all the forms, you can know the theory, but unless you are taking punches, you're never going to beat somebody who does that consistently is kind of
I'd be curious to see how many fights Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee have competed, like how many competitions they've done. I think it's a lot.
I chatted you guys on the live chat there. Bruce Lee, they said that he didn't do a whole lot of martial arts tournaments. He did a lot of street fighting, stuff like that.
Street fights.
Well, there was a bunch of like I know with Bruce Lee, there was a bunch of rumors, right? Like there was a lot of hype behind a lot of things he did because he was supposed to be Shaolin, right? And even the Shaolin thing is an interesting story that we could like kind of talk about because like supposedly the actual Shaolin monks all died. Like their knowledge went away and then China revived it, but they just found people who could kind of play the part. And so like in China, you had there was a time in, I want to say like the 80s when this was happening where like martial artists were coming to China to try to learn from the Shaolin, but they weren't Shaolin. They were just random people that China had put in place to be the Shaolin and were essentially like liars. And so the whole Shaolin myth is kind of more of a myth than what it actually was, which is interesting. But yeah, I had heard this that essentially he did not have a lot of professional fights, even though I think he did have some.
Yeah, it looks like, well, at least what Frank posted, it looks like he didn't have a lot. But he did do boxing, competed in boxing.
And one of the interesting things that Michael Jai White points out is that the thing that Bruce Lee did better than any of the other martial artists was he would combine all of the martial arts. So if you watch him, like if you see the thing where Bruce Lee does that foot shuffle, where he stands in place and his feet go back and forth like this, that's Ali. That's Ali's move. That's the shuffle that Ali does. Like that was his thing. But Bruce Lee would adapt it into his form of martial arts. He would do Taekwondo kicks. He had different types of martial arts that he would cherry pick from that looked really rad. And because he was creating an image. Like that's what he was doing, was he was creating this character that was amazing and is amazing. Like Bruce Lee's fucking, like, no disrespect to Bruce Lee, even a teensy bit, but he created this larger than life character that was bigger than any human being could be because he was so smart, because he intentionally knew so many martial arts. And that was, I think, another thing that Chai White said was that if you were talking about like who knows more martial arts than anyone, it's Bruce Lee. He knew that, like, he learned so much. He was so smart, and he learned all of these various forms of martial arts better than anyone had ever learned. But there still is a difference between that knowledge and standing in front of somebody who's trying to hurt you, which is different in Jai White's opinion, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see that. I'm surprised. I thought he would have competed more because I read that he did compete at least a couple times, but I didn't know that he really didn't compete more than that.
I think technically, from what I know, Chuck Norris and I want to say even Jean-Claude actually had more official fights, like kickboxing matches and stuff. Because at the time, right, like there wasn't MMA, like that wasn't a thing people did. So like if you were going to compete, it was boxing, it was Muay Thai, which very few Americans were going to go do a Muay Thai fight because you might get destroyed. And it was like American style kickboxing was a thing kind of at the time. It was real like super combat-y sports. or like American wrestling too, but there was no combination of that really up until UFC when it turned it into Pride too. You
Pride,
Japanese were doing it too, but
pride. Yeah,
it's interesting that, that it took so long really to kind of realize that like, hey, you can't just know jujitsu, you can't just know boxing, you can't just know wrestling. Like you got to know it all. You have to be rounded as a fighter if you want to be, an actually the best fighter on the planet, just bar none. Which
Like
is why
on
it's
the
always
street
funny
or like in competition?
anywhere in any situation if
No,
you
because in
know.
boxing you can only box.
Yeah, no, I know. But if you want, like, if you took, and the Floyd Mayweather talks about it, like you had Conor McGregor fight Floyd Mayweather as a boxing match, and it was competitive, right? Like they were like Conor got a couple shots in, Floyd did his Floyd thing. Like it wasn't really like Floyd beat him on points easily. Like it wasn't really a competition. But you do that same thing with mixed martial arts, Floyd will be dead within like 2 seconds.
Sure.
Conor McGregor will kick his legs out from under him, will get on top of him, and will beat his face into the ground. Like there is no debating that. Like, and that's the thing is like, you can know a specific type of fighting really well, and you can beat everyone that knows that kind of fighting, and you can beat everyone who doesn't know how to fight. But if you encounter somebody who knows all of the forms, you're gonna get destroyed because you're just too reliant on the one thing. And so it's interesting that it took so long to get to that conclusion because again, for the longest time, it was everyone. The kung fu people were like kung fu's the best. Taekwondo was like taekwondo's the best. Boxers are like boxing's the best. Everyone had their own thing, and that was the thing. And they would never. It was almost even like a competitive like dislike of other things. So if you were like a Taekwondo guy who wanted to learn jujitsu, the Taekwondo people would be like, "What are you doing, you fucking traitor? Like, how dare you try to go learn another martial art?" And it was like looked down on to know a different form of martial art, which is wild. Like, it makes no goddamn sense, but that's the way we did it for a very long time. It's interesting.
yep.
But anyways, Frank, real life person. Before we call it, you got 16, 17 minutes.
I would say probably my dad or pretty much anybody in general who lays their life on the line, like any of the first responders. Essentially, those are like the epitome of like risking your life for the betterment of other human beings and people. Anybody that goes to war have my utmost respect. I feel like my dad primarily because he was kind of a son of a bitch. He was unruly.
Yeah.
Well, not unruly, but he was very in some ways intolerant, right? Because he was stern about what he expected. But in the end, he did what he needed to do, and he made sure that we were taken care of. And
Mhm.
before his passing, he made sure that we were pretty much set, right? So he did his duties as a father and as a leader of the household, to provide for us, and that's to me like the epitome of masculinity is to take care of those that you love and to provide for them, and when you go out to make sure that they're taken care of. So that and anybody who lives a sacrificial life in general, I feel like we men bear the burden of hard labor, right? Because we are capable of of such. So we sacrifice our bodies, and the rewards of it, we get glory, we get honor, we get respect. So yeah, I would say either my dad or anybody who lives their life in a sacrificial way, I think is my role model, the
I
epitome of masculinity.
I actually love that. I think that it is the thing that is missing in this conversation about masculinity, which is, I think what differentiates toxic masculinity from what like I would consider as true masculinity is that toxic masculinity is self-serving. True masculinity is about others. It's about what you bring to others and what you kind of yeah which I'm getting called when you bring to others, you know what I mean? Like I really do, and I think that, like when you frame it that way, like toxic masculinity is bad. I think it is toxic, and it doesn't. It's not conducive to like a good society. But true masculinity, and this is what you're talking about when you say like it's wrong to be a man, and like that's something that has happened where people feel like we're being told that it's wrong to be a man. I think what we need to be told is it's wrong to, it, maybe not even wrong, that we need to aspire to be better men. That we can't allow ourselves to be the Andrew Tates, the Donald Trumps, the fucking self-serving, fear-mongering douchebags. We have to be better, and we have to be better for not just ourselves, but for everyone around us. There's a good quote I'm going to try to pull up here. So in a good example of this is in Lord of the Rings, right? There's the two characters, Boromir and Faramir. I don't know if you guys remember those two characters. Boromir would be what would be considered more of like the toxic masculinity, right? He was beloved by all of men. Like he first into battle, he like was the best warrior, he was the strongest, he was the leader of men, right? He was all of these things. Faramir had a quote in the Lord of the Rings, which is that I'll read it off here. I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend. And the mentality was different. Boromir loved combat. He loved the sword. Faramir loved what the sword protected. And in that duality, Faramir was the stronger. And in the end, they're both tempted by the ring. Boromir succumbs to the ring. He succumbs to his worst nature and tries to kill Frodo and take the ring for himself to empower himself because he needs to be the one to protect everyone, to save everyone, because it's selfish. Faramir lets the ring go. He commits a selfless act, knowing the corruption that it brings, and he releases it out into the world. And like that to me is the epitome of masculinity, is exactly what you just said. And I think the conversation, I think men need to take the conversation back from the aforementioned douchebags that I just mentioned, and stop allowing them to dictate and tell young kids and narrate what it means to be a man, because it doesn't fucking mean that. It doesn't mean being a horrible self-centered piece of shit. And in fact, it's a weak man that does that. You know what I mean? And I think that we should do it often and point it out. But yeah, I love it. It's a great one.
Yeah,
I
mean that's like
I don't disagree with everything that Andrew Tate says, because a lot of the things that he says is for you to be a better man, and for you to be a better man is to take care of those that you love, is to provide for your family, provide for your loved ones, and make yourself into a fearful opponent. Should the situation arise. It doesn't, like, you can have confidence. You can have confidence if it's earned. You can't just go around being a douchebag and be a nobody.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Like, Andrew
my
Tate
argument
has kind of deserved the right, because he is 4-time world champion of kickboxing.
That dude's a horrible, disgusting piece of
I saw his videos. They weren't super impressive in terms of
all
the
of
fighting.
I've seen a lot.
The fighting he does now is probably more impressive than the fighting that he did in the past. But he's able to accumulate a shit ton of wealth, and he's constantly under attack. And yet, not every, but a lot of women seem to be attracted to him. Right?
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, people would consider that fairly masculine and a top-tier individual.
They would, but that's like my point, is that his version of masculinity is self-serving, and his narration of what it means to be masculine.
What about the millions he donates to war-torn countries?
That's bullshit. It's the same thing that Donald Trump. It's the same thing that a lot of them do. It's a PR fucking stunt. It's like when Donald Trump doesn't take the salary of the presidency and gives it to like veterans, as if that money means anything to him. It doesn't mean but it's less than he pays for a fucking ad campaign, and yet you applaud him for it. They're fucking snake oil salesmen, both of those people, and they corrupt what it really means to be a man, which is to be selfless and to hold up everyone around you, and neither of them do that shit. But that's my opinion on them, for sure. But yeah, I like, it's funny because, like I said, we just both largely agreed on what it is, but then we'll disagree on other points for sure. But I think that we we need to, as men, ensure that when we do speak about masculinity, I think that we do bring that into the conversation, that it is not just about your own gravitas, your own self-worth, your own gain, that it is about your legacy, it's about your family, it's about what impact you make on society and whether or not that is a positive or a negative impact, because we have to not just be men, we have to be moral men. And I think that's being lost nowadays, is what's happening.
Sure. Although morality can be subjective.
It is. It is. But,
So to some, being moral means not giving into my morals, which means,
yes,
offending other people.
I mean, there's a whole nother podcast to be done on morality and religion where we can get into the specifics of what I mean when I say morality. But I do think there are certain undeniable truths around morality, and those are kind of what I
I
speak
thought the
about
whole
when
basis of this was to determine whether or not there are no objective realities or facts.
Hey, we can get into, again, that's another one too. We'll bring in simulation theory and start talking about what is reality, but that's another one for the books for sure. Adam, any last words?
No, well said. I agree. I'm just too tired to follow up on it. I'm
It's only
beat,
been
man.
like 3 hours of what are we at? 3 hours and 20 minutes is what we've been doing right
About to be
now.
2
It made
a.m.
it
over
just
here.
it did make me
Yeah.
think. I'm surprised that the concept of the king archetype never came up in this conversation about masculinity, right?
Yeah. We barely talked.
Compared to the tyrant, which is like the most obvious example,
Mhm.
and obvious example of what I think most men, whether they know it or not, are trying to do if they're not corrupt, but is trying to integrate that king archetype into their life, right?
Yep.
But yeah, well said, man. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm sure we will, whatever topic we talk about, because we tend to talk in around. In case anyone ever does watch this, we continuously talk about random nonsense in completely non-organized structure. So we will come back to things in the future.
And
And
if you guys have any topics that you guys want us to discuss, please feel free to comment.
sure, yeah, and Frank
we'll
can read them
always
off,
take
and I can get
suggestions,
super
yeah.
pissed. Whatever, yeah, for sure. But yeah, king archetype. I'm sure all three of us had it kind of in our notes where like I had written down dictator versus kind of a democratic leader, which is very king versus tyrant. Is a similar theme. So I'm sure we'll, whether it's politics or we go back into masculinity or whatever, I'm sure we'll circle back around to that in the future.
It's very relevant in many areas. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But I
So
think that's it.
go ahead.
That's
Yeah.
it. People, if anyone ever watches this, we love you. And have a good night, I guess. I don't know. Is that a good sign off? We'll have
That's
to work.
pretty
We'll
good.
workshop it. Go fuck
That's good.
yourself, America. How about that one?